let it happen, because the two films involved were The Singers, which is an 18-minute musical comedy with a bunch of non-actors in it, and a film called Two People Exchanging Saliva, which is a queer dystopian film in French that is set in a world where kissing is punishable by death. Kumail Nanjiani was the presenter at the time when this tie happened, and he handled it so well. Obviously, they're trained for it. He said, okay, it's a tie. Here's how we're going to do it. First, this film's going to come up.
Oh, he didn't know before he opened the envelope?
He did not know before he opened the envelope, and he met the moment, man. And so, look, live-action short film is, people can make fun of it. It is an important category because it gives up-and-coming filmmakers recognition, the kind of recognition that is going to bankroll their next project as they go on to bigger and better things. And this year, instead of happening to one film, it happened to two. That's just a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Let's talk about cinematography. That award went to Autumn Durald Arkapaw. She's the first woman to ever win that category. So, first of all, congratulations to her. If someone goes back and watches Sinners, what sort of thing would they see that has her fingerprints all over it?
I mean, you're going to keep seeing things that kind of serve the story without getting in the way. I mean, I just watched it recently, and the first thing I noticed is that the opening shot of the film is a shot of this guy with the sun, but there's a lens flare in the camera, so it looks like there's two suns in the shot, but that's the whole theme of the movie is twins and what sunlight does to certain kind of vampires. Look, it was easily the best speech of the night, one of the best ever, I think, because the speech was so in control, so composed, but still emotional, and what it did was it met this historic moment.
I'm so honored to be here, and I really want all the women in the room to stand up, because I feel like I don't get here without you guys.
That was a really tough needle to thread, right? Because what she had to do was say, I just made history, but I want to bring you all in. And doing that thing where she asked the women to stand up, that was great. It's like she's meeting the moment, but she's meeting it for all of us. And it's also a great-looking film.
How do you think voters landed on Michael B. Jordan as Best Actor, who, by the way, played two characters in the same film?
Well, it was there in your intro, right, where he says, I know you guys are pulling for me. We are. He knows we've been watching this guy since The Wire, and, he said as much. He knows we're pulling for him. He also is, in that film, he does play twins. He also, when the camera finds him, you know which twin he's playing before you can process any visual cues like costumes or anything, just because of how he holds himself. And he finds two different ways of being vulnerable in two different characters who are in two different ways trying to perform that they're not vulnerable, right? And so he lets us find it in them. He's also, at the end of the day, he's a guy with leading man facial symmetry, but character actor bones. He can play anything.
Yeah. All right, so Timothée Chalamet had been the heavy favorite, actually, up until pretty late to win Best Actor, but he then kind of landed in some hot water recently, didn't he? What went wrong for Timothée Chalamet?
Well, I mean, he has been campaigning for a long time. He is a tryhard, a classic tryhard when it comes to Oscar campaigning. And a lot of the folks in the public, I spoke to some folks this weekend who were like, I hate that guy. I was like, have you seen the film? No. But these are people who are not extremely online. But if you are extremely online, you know that he said in an interview that he wants to be part of an art form that's not like ballet and it's not like opera. It's an art form that people actually care about. Now, that didn't win him many fans, especially among NPR listeners. But do I think that, big ballet and big opera got together on the Upper West Side and clinked, plastic tumblers of Chardonnay and said, we must take him down? No, that's not what happened. What just happened is he's out here for a long time. The Oscars love a tryhard, but the public doesn't. And he's been doing this for 2 years because, he just came off that Bob Dylan movie last year where that was yet another Oscar campaign. I think people liked his performance in that movie if they saw it, and they liked the performance more than the movie. But ultimately, it was MBJ's time.
I think Timothy will be back for sure. Let's go out on some music because it was a big night for K-pop Demon Hunters, which won Best Animated Movie and Best Original Song, and they performed Golden on stage to the delight of every 12-year-old child. What'd you think of that moment?
I mean, I thought, hey, we're getting a production number. Talk about old school. I thought they were going to do that for all 5 songs, but they didn't. They just did the 2 best songs, or let's just say the 2 most up-tempo songs. And then they threw out a QR code so you could listen to the other 3, which I thought was pretty cheap. But look, production numbers are great. If you do it on stage, it's cheesy and cringe, but there's something about knowing it's cheesy and cringe and doing it anyway, which is not cheesy and cringe. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the way I felt.
Glenn Weldon hosts the NPR podcast Pop Culture Happy Hour. You can listen to Glenn and his co-host break down the Oscars in your podcast feed today. Thanks so much, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter.
It's Here and Now. It's not just the price of oil that's going up. Key ingredients for fertilizer also have to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That could be a problem for U.S. farmers who are starting to plant their crops, and eventually it could be a problem for you at the grocery store. David Bowen is a fourth-generation farmer in Randolph, Mississippi. David, good to speak with you.
Glad to be here.
So I see you grow cotton and corn and soybeans, sweet potatoes. Do you have the fertilizer you need to get everything planted this spring?
I'm sure it'll be available. It's going to be quite an increase in the price. Obviously, the politics and the war and the bombs and all that had played a big role in increasing the urea, which has kind of got us scared to plant a lot of corn. It takes so much urea, nitrogen, fertilized to have a good corn crop that you can't skimp. And these days, you got to make everything count.
Well, have you been able to sort of sit down with your calculator and crunch the numbers to see how much extra this might cost you?
I believe it was an extra $200+ a ton. You can kind of figure stuff different ways, but you have to have a pretty substantial yield across the board, which is tough to do on corn. It's because it's so variable on corn with rainfall and weather. You may, if it gets hot and dry in the month of June, we don't have a very good corn crop.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds tough because farming, from what I understand, is always kind of a business of tight margins. Are you thinking about, well, maybe this is a year I don't plant corn?
Not much, for sure. You may plant some on your good ground, some you get dry early. Where we are, it doesn't always work, but we like to get it in early. Therefore, you don't have to go through the summer with the corn hot, stressed when it's trying to pollinate stuff.
Yeah. Fertilizer is just one part of the business. Cost of diesel fuel, I see, is also going up. How closely are you watching fuel prices?
We're watching them, but diesel prices doubled over the last 2 weeks. It's just like everybody else. There's nothing, your hands are tied. There's nothing you can really do about it except limit your trips on your farm. And you may have, where we was trying to get the ground in a little better shape, we may try to do some places here and there that on minimal till, if not zero till.
Yeah. Are you losing sleep these days because of all this?
Day to day, I guess. It just depends on the situation. Sometimes you're tired enough, you worked hard enough, it doesn't matter. You lay down, go to sleep as soon as your head hits the pillow. But some nights there's definitely a lot to think about if you sit up and let yourself wonder.
I bet. Last year, President Trump gave out $12 billion in direct payments to farmers who were affected by his tariffs. Now, the Agriculture Secretary said the administration's very close to announcing something to help farmers with the cost of fertilizer. Do you think these types of solutions solve your problems?
Nothing's very fun when you have to manage the income or the money when margins are tight. It's a lot, makes things more stressful. And anytime you can get any kind of government bailout for a tough situation, it helps. But usually situations like that get you back to where you needed to be. And it's hard to gain ground.
So we're at the start of the growing season now, or the planting season. What do you predict this year is going to be like? What are you forecasting for your own business?
We're going to grow a little bit more sweet potatoes, not a ton. We're not really set up to wash sweet potatoes right now here on our place, but we're going to grow as much as we think we can sell. We do have a cotton gin, so we can get by growing cotton. We can not quite as much nitrogen used, about half amount, maybe a little less, to grow cotton per acre than it is corn. Maybe soybean prices took a little jump, and it varied a little bit over the end of last week. If they'll stay strong, we got ground to grow good soybeans. Just need sweet potato prices to stay strong and the others to rebound a little bit.
Yeah. Considering everything you've just told me, how do you feel, if I could ask, how do you feel about this war in general? Is it something you support?
Yes, to an extent, doing most of everything right, but, just like everything else, probably don't know the whole story.
Yeah. And it sounds like you might have to put up with some heartburn while as long as this war goes on. So that's something you're willing to do. Is that for the short term, for the long term? What do you think about that?
Well, you don't want these type of situations to rock on very long in any type of business. But no, it would much rather be short term than long term. Need to solve the problems quick, fast, and in a hurry, and move on.
David Bowen is a fourth-generation farmer in Randolph, Mississippi. David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're listening to Hear It Now.
Reporting the news for Radio IQ isn't just a job for me. It's a calling. I grew up in Western Virginia, and after I moved away for college, I couldn't help but track all the news happening back home. After a few years, I moved back to Appalachia to become a journalist. I report for Radio IQ because the news isn't something that happens in Washington, D.C. or half a world away. It's happening here in the Roanoke Valley in ways that affect me, my family, and my home community. Your support enables our newsroom to bring you that news every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mason, and thank you for listening to Radio IQ. Coming up next, we are in Fresh Air, where Ben Stiller will talk about a new documentary about his parents. That's coming up in just a few moments. But we just wanted to take just a few short seconds here at the bottom of the hour, right before 2 o'clock, to ask you to support all of the programming here at Radio IQ. Listener support makes up the largest share of the operating budget here at the station, and you can help ensure that that continues into the future. We've heard from 13 folks so far this hour. Let's get that up to 15. You can do that at radioiq.org or call 1-800-856-8900. Nick Gilmore here with Fred Eccles.
And you can move that call count up to 15 at 800-856-8900, or you can pledge at radioiq.org, as Nick mentioned. I want to mention Mr. Charles Lean, who has phoned in a pledge today. Charles is somebody I met, along with his son, back in the day when most contributions came in by phone, and Charles would come in from Forest Cleaning Service and answer phones, and would bring his son with him. And when I would pass back and forth regularly through the room where the phone answers were, and I had an opportunity to talk with Charles and his son on quite a few occasions. Very sorry to hear that he has lost his son. But Charles has called and said hearing us today has brought back some good memories for him. And Charles, I'm very happy to hear from you again. Also called today from Cheryl, who says Radio IQ is a daily companion, interesting and informative. And here is pledge today from Stephen, who says this, and it's in all capital letters: in-depth news, no conspiracy theories. You tell it the way it is. And Nick, that's what we do.
That's what we do. And you can help. Thank you so much to all of those folks who have given so far. Thank you very much.
You to discover Virginia on Demand, a weekday podcast from Radio IQ with news and featured stories from our newsroom and contributors. Subscribe to Virginia on Demand wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Radio IQ on WVTF Roanoke, WRIQ Charles City Richmond, WVTU Charlottesville, WVTW Charlottesville, WVTR Marion, WISE FM Wise, WQIQ Spotsylvania, WIUR Lexington, WEHC Emory, HD3 of WURV Richmond, and on 92.5 Richmond and 94.9 Fredericksburg. Radio IQ, a listener-supported community service of Virginia Tech, on your smart speaker and online at radioiq.org.
Fresh Air with Terry Gross is underwritten by the Davis H. Elliott Company, providing energy delivery services to utility and government partners since 1946. The Davis H. Elliott Company.
I wanted to stand while I could. Philadelphia, I'm Terry Gross with Fresh Air. Today, Ben Stiller on his parents' marriage, their comedy partnership, and what it was like.
How many of us are going?
Yeah, I know, right?
You know, and so.
And she's going on.
Sounds a little different on this table. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 2:00 p.m. session of Roanoke City Council on March 16th, 2026. City Council meetings are televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursdays at 7:00 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and video streamed through YouTube Live at youtube.com/RoanokeVA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing. This time, I'm going to ask our clerk, Ms. McCoy, to call the roll for council, please.
Ms. Powers?
Here.
Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones?
Here.
Vice Mayor McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Nash?
Here.
Mr. Volleson? And Mayor Cobb.
Here, and a quorum is present. And before we move to the school board roll call, we're going to invite Reverend Elizabeth Link to come and share our invocation for the day. Reverend Link is the executive pastor at Second Presbyterian Church and may be related to someone on the school board.
By marriage.
And then following that, I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite everyone to stand, please.
Please pray with me. Holy God, we pause to give thanks for the privilege and responsibility of serving the city of Roanoke and its people. We ask your wisdom to rest upon the members of this council and school board gathered together today. In a time when division and harsh rhetoric strain so many communities, we pray that Roanoke may choose a different path. Help us to listen to one another carefully, to speak with clarity and kindness, and to seek understanding even when we see things differently. Grant us the grace to see the best in one another, remembering that each person here serves out of a desire to strengthen this community we share. Guide these women and men in their work together. Give them patience in moments of tension, clarity in moments of complexity, and a shared vision for the well-being of our city and its children. Lead us to make decisions that support the most vulnerable, strengthen our neighborhoods, and create fairness and opportunity for all. Give us courage to do what is right, humility to listen and learn from one another, and wisdom as we work for the common good. Lord, I pray you will bless the people of Roanoke with peace, safety, and a future shaped by dignity and possibility for every neighbor who calls this beautiful and special place home. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're good. We're up now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and thank you to Ms. Link. Ms. Tresky, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Cherry.
Here.
Mr. Link.
Here.
Dr. Jamison. Ms. Quintana. Ms. Trigg.
Here.
Mrs. Watkins.
Here.
Mrs. Apow.
Here. Thank you. And on to the approval of the school board agenda. I move to amend the agenda by removing the legislative update report and to approve the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cherry. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. And the motion carries and our agenda is approved. I also want to note that for our CPS, we have a number of our core team and administration here, along with our superintendent. And I know that there's impending potential inclement weather. So if you see any of them up and head out, it's just because they're dealing with the normal logistics of the close of the school day and after school activities and things. So thank you for your patience and understanding as they may come in and out of the room.
And before we continue, I just want to, first of all, thank everyone who's here today. It's always nice to have an intergenerational group of people in the room. Following our joint meeting this afternoon, we'll take a 5 to 10 minute recess so that council can reconfigure to the dais, and then we'll continue with the rest of the meeting. So I just want to make sure you all are aware of that, so we'll have some time to maneuver and make the logistical changes we need to.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to everyone who's in attendance today. We're very appreciative of this opportunity to come together, and I applaud council for appointing fellow school board members who are so committed to ensuring that we stay true to the mission and vision of Roanoke City Public Schools, to know every student by name, by need, and by strength, and that we honor our strategic plan with fidelity, not independent of oversight, but with transparency and in communication. Speaking as a parent with kids who represent the classes of 2032 and 2034, I'm in this for the long haul, as are the rest of us. And we're invested in our schools and this city. We look forward to the city's strategic plan as well. And the mayor and I are already discussing how we as two bodies can come together and look for opportunities for further and better alignment. I'm glad today for our superintendent and team to get to present on the division's academic progress. It's been years in the making, and that's what we as a school board and division are here for. The gains that have been made are something that our CPS and City Council should be proud of, representing years of shared investment and prioritization to get to this point. So we want to keep that momentum going. So I know that budget issues are at the fore and for everyone right now. To steal the words of my colleague, Ms. Trigg, we may have to have some uncomfortable conversations to get back to having comfortable conversations, but we're committed to our kids, to our staff, our schools, our neighborhoods, and this city. We're prepared to do the hard work necessary with the resources afforded us to make sure that our students have access to an excellent education here in the Star City. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Appel. And I just want to echo what you said. I think it's important that we're here together. We're working through these issues together. We're here to better understand our realities and how those have changed recently and are likely to be vulnerable for the next several years. And so it's important that we're having these conversations together. I've been thinking a lot about the collective work that we do and how important it is. Though I'm not able to attend every school board meeting, we leave that in your very capable hands. I've been able to attend the last two, one virtually and one in person. And I just want to echo, from my perspective, how much I appreciate your hard work, the care and attention you put into these difficult challenges. Vice Chair, I wanted to especially thank you for the call to restorative work. I think that's really important. And I want to take just a personal moment to reflect on the nature of reconciliation. Reconciliation in any relationship is probably the most difficult work any of us will ever do. Whether it's a marital relationship or a best friend or a work colleague, none of us particularly likes conflict. None of us likes to dwell in difficult circumstances, particularly when it comes to funding and budgeting. But when we call on our better angels, we remember who we are as people, who we are as individuals, what it is that motivates us, what it is that inspires us. And I've been thinking a lot about a relationship change I went through when I came out as a gay man a long time ago. It changed the very nature of my marriage. And I will never forget the conversation that my former spouse and I had and a vow that we made, ironically, the day we were signing our divorce papers. And please, I'm not talking about us having a divorce here. I'm saying we are struggling in relationship. And I'm just trying to name that because that's certainly what I'm feeling. But we made a vow to each other to speak and act in loving ways toward each other and about each other for the sake of our children and for the sake of our individual health and wholeness. And when we lived into that vow, it absolutely transformed our relationships. Not just our relationship with our children, it changed our relationships in our families and in our workplace. And I wanted to share that because that's the commitment that I bring. I don't always get it right. I get frustrated. We all get frustrated, and we sometimes say things that we wish we hadn't said. So for that, I apologize. But I also want to thank you all for our willingness to be here together, to work through this, and to map out some steps that we can make toward reconciliation, because I believe in us, I believe in our schools, I believe in our city, and I believe we all want to dwell in health and wholeness as a community. So thank you, Chair Appel, for being here and for your leadership, and to your colleagues, thank you all for being here as well today. So we have some exciting updates. I know academic performance and measurables are always important, and so I'll turn this part over to you, Ms. Appel, to guide us through.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor Cobb, and thank you for those words as well. So, and we will really move it on to Dr. White, our superintendent. So please take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Mayor
Good afternoon.
Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, City Council members, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the school board, and to other guests who are in person and those who are watching. Thank you for having us here this afternoon. And I do also want to thank our staff members who are here with us today, as well as several parents and teachers that I see in support of our schools. But I also would like to thank the most important people in the room, the children that we have here in our room. Because they are at the heart of everything that we do. So in the interest of time, we have your requested topics, and we're going to provide some updates, as the Mayor said, and as Chair Appel said as well. Again, you have jointly requested updates on a few things, on academic performance, on the boundary, and as well as on capital projects. And we will pause in between each topic so that you have an opportunity to have discussion and ask any questions that you may have. So let's start with an update on the academic performance side of things. And what you're going to hear today, Chair Appel has already alluded to, and that is what we're doing is working in Roanoke City Public Schools when it comes to not only construction, but also instruction, which is at the core of our work. So the result of this intentional work, it's really about being all in, and knowing our students, as Chair Appel said, by name, need, and strength. And so first, I would like to share a reminder of who we are, because for those who may be tuning in and who need a kind of a broader context of who we are, I'd like to use that always as our starting point. These are things that I know that as council and school board you already know, but I want to make sure that everyone tuning in and everyone here present understands our demographics. So we serve, as you know, approximately 14,000 students. And this is based on the end of the 24-25 school year. These are those numbers that you see there. And so our enrollment has remained quite steady over the years. If you'll recall, right around the pandemic, we were projected to have a steep decline in enrollment, but that has not happened. We have remained steady over the years. So you'll hear more about our enrollment as we get into our capital projects portion of our update. So about 65% of our students live in households that are identified as economically disadvantaged or below the poverty line. And a significant number of our students receive special services. About 20% of our students receive English language services, and about 20% of our students receive special education services. We have a large preschool population, and we have continued to have hundreds of students, unfortunately, experiencing some levels of housing insecurity or homelessness. About 5 to 6% of our students are identified as gifted, and of course, there is overlap between these categories. So we have students who fall in multiple categories, so you'll see that in the percentages as well. So as we've said before, we really are a unicorn when it comes to our region, and there is no other school division in Southwest Virginia with this level of diversity and has this level of need. And again, we're proud of our diversity. We celebrate our diversity, but it is important to know who we are and whom we serve, I should say. So for instance, if you just take our English learner population, nearly 20% of our students receive English learner services. So during the 24-25 school year, we had more English learners than our neighboring divisions had of all of their English learners combined. In fact, the number of English learners we served last year was higher than 48 divisions' total enrollment, total student enrollment. So this is, again, and we celebrate that. We celebrate our diversity, but it's important to have context. This is not just a regional comparison. We are 14th in the state for our total English learner enrollment out of 131 divisions. And that was last school year. This number continues to grow, so I think it's important for us to keep in mind as we consider our students' needs. And so this afternoon, we're going to share an overview of our student performance data over the last few years. And again, what you will see is that what we're doing is working, and so we'll share the how and the why behind the what of the data so that you have a full context. So let's start with accreditation. 1 year ago, 5 of our schools were accredited with conditions. We are very proud to share that all of our schools are now fully accredited. And so again, this is a team effort, and I want to thank our entire staff, from our instructional assistants to our teachers, our principals, our parents, our counselors, our instructional coaches, our mentors, our division leadership team, for their intentional work to support our students and their families as well, and our schools in every way that they can. And I do want to go a layer deeper, because state accreditation is only part of the story. At the federal level, we're moving in the right direction as well. So Lucy Addison, for instance, which had been federally identified for comprehensive support and improvement, or as a CSI school, has exited that status entirely. No federal identification at all. And several of our other middle schools have also improved their federal identification status as well. So again, hats off to our team and to our parents and to our students who are working hard as well. And so when it comes to attendance, we've built systems that support our students and families, and our school staff, again, knowing our families and our students by name, need, and strength, as we talk about. By doing this, our students feel valued, and they want to come to school. So chronic absenteeism, for instance, has decreased at 58% of our schools this year, and stayed about the same in about 27% of our schools. Division-wide, 390 fewer students are chronically absent this year. That means more students are present in their classrooms and are ready to learn. When it comes to discipline, we are building positive discipline structures through MTSS, which stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, and through PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Intervention Support. And so that's in collaboration also with the juvenile court system, and as well with our community partners. However, we know that positive behavior starts in the classroom, and positive behavior really is linked to highly effective, high-quality Tier 1 instruction, which is our emphasis. And because Tier 1 instruction is its own strategy for positive behavior. So all of that work combined has contributed to having a meaningful impact on school discipline. So for instance, between the 2023-2024 and 2024-2025 school years, discipline incidents decreased by 7.85%. In-school suspensions were down 10.72%, and out-of-school suspensions were down nearly 13%. But here's the number that I keep coming back to. Suspension days dropped by nearly 24%. That's 2,660 days that students spent in school rather than out of school, receiving high-quality instruction and connected to meaningful relationships with their peers, with their teachers, and other adults in the building. This year, comparing first semesters, suspension days are down another 4.6%, which is 25.7% over the last 2 years. So we're being intentional in increasing our targeted behavioral supports, including counseling and other mental health supports, programs that you're familiar with, like Community Builders and AVID. Those things are making a difference. Programs that are keeping our students engaged and on track, those things matter. So I do want to be clear that our students are held accountable. Right? So again, we do not condone any type of bullying or egregious behavior, and they are held accountable. But we are digging deeper to make sure that we're getting at the root causes of some problematic behavior, right? We want to make sure that we're understanding what our students are up against, what they're going through, so we're not just jumping to exclusion. So part of this nuance is also that many of our students are kind of repeat offenders, if you will. So there is a level of recidivism that we do have to take into account and have to look into, and that we are monitoring and that we're engaging with those students and families every day to understand why they continue to get in trouble. So some of those numbers that you see there have to do with some of that recidivism. And so now let's shift to the academics, because these results are not happening by accident. They are the result, again, of intentional, sustained investment in our people and in our programs as well. And again, that's the same on the instructional side. So in literacy, for instance, because early literacy is the foundation of everything that we do, it's the foundation of every other content area, we adopted Imagine Learning as our K-5 core reading curriculum. So, and we have teachers who have been trained and continue to be trained on the science of reading through LETTERS training, which stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. So we have cohorts there. Our work with the Virginia Literacy Improvement Network is doing concentrated work with Hurt Park, Fallon Park, Lincoln Terrace, and West Side. And the Virginia Language and Literacy Screening System, that's what we call VALS, gives us an early picture of who needs support. So from fall to spring, during the 2024-2025 school year, the total number of students identified as high risk decreased by 6.58%. So this year, that work has continued. So from fall to mid-year so far, the total number of students identified as at risk dropped by an additional 12.77%. So this, again, is what early intervention looks like in real time, and this is why we continue to advocate for that investment in early literacy, early resources, and early literacy personnel as well. Now, when it comes to MAP, to the MAP assessment, as you can see this work continuing through our MAP reading growth assessments. MAP stands for Measures of Academic Progress. And MAP is a predictive assessment, and it shows how our students are growing throughout the year, and it shows their progress towards the SOL assessment. So how might they fare on the SOL assessment? And so we started this assessment some years ago to make sure that we had our finger on the pulse of how our students are growing and how they might do on the SOL assessment. So from fall 2024 to fall 2025, our upper elementary and middle schoolers either approached or exceeded expected growth. There's expected growth measure for our schools, and they met or exceeded that expected growth. So these are the students who were in early elementary school or not even in elementary school yet during the pandemic. again, which is a critical time. It's a foundational time for early literacy. And our targeted work, as you can see, is yielding growth. But unfortunately, and we mentioned the budget cuts here, the MAP assessment is one of the assessments that we will no longer have. We won't have that predictive assessment moving forward. So when it comes to our SOL results, growth is only one piece of academic performance. Achievement, which we measured through our SOL pass rates, is another piece. We have only just started testing for this school year, but from 2023-2024 to the 2024-2025 school years, our pass rates increased for nearly every assessment and remain the same for one assessment. So keep in mind that the state has overhauled the SOL testing program. So within the past 2 years, reading and math tests have been more rigorous, and this year, the social studies assessment is brand new. So next school year, the state will phase in requiring higher cut scores for passing. So we are staying the course, and we're continuing to focus, as I said before, on high-quality, effective instruction, because no matter the assessment, we know that that's what's most important, that high-quality Tier 1 instruction. So I'm not going to go too deep into a new accountability system, but I do think it's worth mentioning here so that we can see that, again, this new accountability system has many components to it. It first comes across as a simplified system, and it is anything but simple. And as many of our school board members know, you've had lesson over lesson after lesson about the SPSF. So it seems simple at first when we're talking about distinguished schools or on track, off track, or needs intensive support. But it is a very complex system. As you start to learn more about the system, you can see this. And so you'll hear this as I go through the next few slides, that our elementary and middle schools are related to mastery, growth, and readiness, as you'll see on the slides there. For high schools, we're measured by mastery, readiness, and graduation. So we'll start with graduation. Our graduation rate remains high, and as you can see, we are continuing to close gaps between reporting groups and are proud that our on-time graduation rate for students with disabilities increased by nearly 6 percentage points. One area for improvement is ensuring that we work with our students receiving English learner services early to ensure that they remain on track for graduation. Now, because we've had such a significant rise in our English learner population and growth, I'm going to take some time to talk specifically about that student group or that reporting group over the next few slides, because I know that there's great interest since we have has such an increase in that student group. So our English learner population, again, has grown significantly over the last decade, having nearly doubled. We serve more students now who arrive at our schools with little to no English or who are still learning English. Last year, we launched Project GLAD, which stands for Guided Language Acquisition Design. And that's a research-based and instructional model. It's really a professional development model for our teachers so that we have that support for our teachers. Again, if you can imagine, you have an influx of students who have very little English or limited English, then as a teacher, you may want some help and support with that. So GLAD is intended for that purpose, to provide that type of professional development and support. So we piloted GLAD, Project GLAD, at Monterey, at Preston Park, and at Round Hill. And this year, we expanded it to Addison, to Breckenridge, and Woodrow Wilson Middle Schools. We've also built in an English learner co-teaching cohort that develops new English learner teachers and builds team capacity school by school. So as you can see, when it comes to our reading, I'll just go to reading. As you can see, English learners led reading growth at 4 of our 13 elementary and middle schools included in this growth calculation out of all reporting groups. To be clear, 13 of our 22 elementary and middle schools have at least 15 English learners, which is what the state uses in its new performance and accountability framework. As you saw in our English learner demographics slide earlier, 32% of the schools across the state do not have at least 15 English learners. So this is, again, another significant factor for us when it comes to accreditation and accountability. When it comes to math growth, our English learners also led math growth at 7 schools compared to other reporting groups. When it comes to mastery, at both high schools, English learner students posted the highest math mastery scores in the division. Patrick Henry at 96% of the mastery points, and William Fleming at 99% of the mastery points. And then there's Fallon Park. 1 year ago, Fallon Park was conditionally accredited. This year, Fallon Park had the highest English learner progress of any school in this division and ranked in the top 15% of all schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Awesome. So many times, our schools, as you saw earlier, are framed under the new labels that have been placed upon them. And it's, in my opinion, that really discredits the hard work of our teachers, our principals, our central office staff, our administrators, and our teams who work hard every day. Again, if you peel back the label, as you can see, there's a lot of growth and a lot of progress happening underneath that label. And those stories matter. Those are the stories of our children and the stories of our schools. 68% of our English learners demonstrated growth on the WIDA Access assessment, for instance. Again, that's Project GLAD. That's English learner co-teaching. That's what that is. And that happens, again, when we invest in that type of professional learning for our teachers. This year, the state's SOQs increased, and we had to hire 35.5 additional English learner teachers to meet that new state requirement, and we did that. Additionally, division-wide, we conduct learning walks at all of our schools where we identify what's working and what needs attention. Our division leaders are in schools weekly, and we hold quarterly joint sessions for reading specialists, instructional coaches, and school improvement mentors. And that's what all hands on deck, that's what that looks like. So just to summarize this portion of our report, again, we know that there's always work to do. My late mother, God rest her soul, would say, you know, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be. Oh, yeah. Right? And so it's important, though, to give credit where credit is due, because what you've heard today, and what I've hoped that you've heard and learned today, is that attendance is moving in the right direction, discipline is moving in the right direction, early literacy is moving in the right direction, growth is moving in the right direction, and achievement is moving in the right direction. That's not happenstance. That's because of organizational discipline. It's because of intentionality. And again, I just want to say hats off to our team for coming to work every single day, committed to do what's right for our students and for our families, because we're all in all the time. We still have work to do, but we know that what we're doing is working. So, Madam Chair, Mayor Cobb, I'll pause here to take any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you. Are there questions?
Go back to the graduation slide.
Sure.
I didn't get that slight decrease from the 2024 cohort for the on-time graduate. Oh wait, never mind. Wait, can you explain this graph? Because I see the student count went up. So because you're doing a larger sample size, it looks like on-time graduation went down. But they really, okay.
I'll get our data guru in order to, this is Dr. Jonathan Schultz, and he's our data guy, so.
Can you clarify your question for me, please?
Oh, so I was just asking, because at first when I was looking at it, which is why I wanted to look at it in detail, I saw, you know, like the quote-unquote on-time graduation rate decrease, but then I see that there's an increase in students in general that are graduating So my question is I guess if you're looking at it on like a per sample basis, taking like 100 from one cohort, 100 from the other cohort, are we seeing a increase in on-time graduation, and it's just looking like it's a decrease because of the larger sample size?
You're seeing a slight decrease in the overall, and that's based on different groups. Now the different groups are performing going across. You can see that we are showing increases in multiple groups, and we have 2 groups in particular that we're focused on in terms of our Hispanic students and our English learners. And that's where so if you see, most of the groups are heading up, and the overall number is slightly down, and that's indicating the focus that we need to put on those students.
Which is why we've spent so much time, again, and we're spending more time on our English learner reporting group. Absolutely. Mr. Ling.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The at-risk readers slide. Can we see that one?
Absolutely.
There it is, there it is. So K, 2, and 3 are doing exactly what you would expect. You identify more high-risk students earlier in the year than they are late in the year. First grade is funny. Is that just the uniqueness of that group of students that year? Is there any other discernible reason as to why that year's funny?
Yep, coming up. This is Dr. Cindy Williams. She's our Chief Academic Officer.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. So I will share with you that our VALS assessment in first grade requires our students to grow a larger amount. It's a more difficult test for first graders because of the expectation.
Okay.
And so our state actually saw the same pattern and trend that our first graders decreased because the test is exceptionally hard at first grade.
Okay. So that's a trend that we're not seeing just here at our CPS, but they've seen it across the state.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have 2 quick ones. Dr. White, you talked, I think, on one of the early slides about accreditation, and kudos to all the schools being fully accredited. Last year, there were 5 accredited with conditions, and I know you're always looking at what are those conditions and making sure that schools don't become vulnerable to those.
Sure.
Are you able to talk about what those conditions are and just briefly, like the strategy?
Sure. So when I mentioned, for instance, the numbers of English learner teacher, for instance, we have requirements, they're the SOQ requirements that we have to meet each year. And we have to make sure that we are checking all of those boxes, from the number of personnel to safety kinds of things to, and what used to be is really, again, linking to performance. And so we're proud that we've checked those boxes and that we have covered all of those areas.
Okay, yeah. That's good. The second, you mentioned the MAPS assessment, and in looking at your at potential reductions or assessments that may not be available due to budgeting.
Yes.
You mentioned that might not be, you may not have access to that.
Yes.
Due to budget reductions.
Yes.
I think my bigger question is, because the schools get funding from federal dollars, state dollars, and local dollars, and you don't have to answer this today, I'm just for future reference. Would this MAPS assessment be one of those things that's strictly funded through local dollars, or is that funded as well through state or federal? I'm trying to understand what in your budget may be just locally funded, and
I'm not quite sure we tease it out in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I will say we don't use federal dollars to fund this particular assessment program. All of our federal dollars are identified for primarily sort of school-specific needs and that sort of thing. But some of our state monies are fairly flexible, that we have options. So certainly, we don't break that down in terms of when we pay the bill for the MAP assessment, that's coming out of a local pot versus a state pot per se. But we can use both local or state monies for that purpose. So it's just one of those items when we're looking at the budget as a whole.
Right.
That there's only so much available. We have a lot of things we want to do. This is one of those items that is kind of on the list of potential
So this
reductions.
is, I guess, part of what I'm asking is this an additional assessment that you all have found helpful in the measurements that you're doing, and would like to continue it?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, again, it's helpful to have that, when you have great need, it's important for us to be able to monitor our students' performance along the way. And so this has been another tool for our teachers to be able to monitor our students' performance and to predict. Again, we have predictive assessments, we have periodic assessments. So you may have heard about benchmark assessments and those kinds of things. Benchmark assessment is more of a periodic assessment that we are typically kind of used to and when we were in school, right? But this predictive assessment helps us to forecast how our students might fare on the SOL assessment. But when we were looking at a budget shortfall, for instance, and we went through the criteria and the framework that we used to measure our programs and to determine where we might cut, the MAP assessment is one that it's one of the programs or assessments that we know it's vulnerable at this time.
Thank you.
Sure.
What?
Ms. Powers? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll go next.
And then Ms. Watt.
Do you know right offhand what the annual cost of the MAP assessment is?
$79,000.
How much?
$79,000.
How much?
$79,000.
Watkins.
Wanted to make sure she was done. Okay.
And that's an annual cost?
Yes, ma'am.
Go back to the accreditation slide. I just want to piggyback off of Mayor Cobb's question on the accreditation. Have we identified, the mayor asked, have we identified what those risks were? And so that kind of if we don't go back down that road, can you tell us of the things that you identified that could impact our accreditation? Are any of those things tied to our funding? Are we at risk because of funding for
Absolutely.
full
Yes.
accreditation for these schools? And if so, what? Give me an example of something.
I'm going to ask Mrs. Jackson to come up. She can think of an example off the top of her head, but quicker than I can.
I mean, the main way it's tied is that we are required to meet the standards of quality, the SOQs, as Dr. White was mentioning. So we have to make sure that we are staffing at least to that minimum level. So that's an important thing budgetarily that we have to pay attention to ensure we stay fully accredited, that we are budgeting for all of those positions. So for example, we would have had an accreditation issue if we had not met that new standard that came into play. That's why we had to add so many English learner teachers in the last year, because the state changed that requirement. And so we maintained our accreditation by making sure we met that expectation.
Yeah, sure.
So with that, did you get any extra state funding since they mandated something? Did they pay for any of it?
Yes. So when the standards of quality are partially funded by the state, so they fund, based on the local composite index, roughly about 2/3 of the estimated state cost of any positions that the state requires, and then we're required to fund 1/3. Sometimes we find that because it's based on an estimate of sort of an average teacher salary, that also is not sufficient, and then they're only funding a portion of it.
Does the state still do the second half of the year where they make up the difference of the funding that they give you? They give it to you at the beginning, and then you get some more in the middle? I'm trying to remember from my old audit days, so, and I'm not remembering, but does it still work the same way?
Well, they do sort of do a true up at the end of the year, so funding is based on an estimate of, most state funding is calculated on a per pupil amount and multiplied by the funded average daily membership, which is a state calculation. You'll hear a little bit about that later. That doesn't include all students, that just includes the portion that is funded through basic aid. So most funding is calculated on that measure, and so they will have an estimate of that membership number throughout the beginning of the year, but at the end of the day, our actual funding is based on whatever that March 31st average daily membership funded number is. And so then whether that number is lower than they thought it was going to be or higher than they thought it was going to be, our subsequent payments in the months thereafter will be adjusted accordingly.
And I did want to make a note regarding standards of quality, and I also want to be mindful of time because I know there's other things on the agenda that I know council will want to talk about and get information about. We've harped on the fact that an independent third party has deemed that the standards of quality that the state has codified are well below what meets minimum needs for a quality education. And I just want to point out that when the state right-sized their standards of quality ratios for English learners, the students in Roanoke basically needed double the support than what they were getting. And the funding to support that support was all compensated for, basically that extra, locally, until the state changed its ratios. So when we know that the state is underfunding or undercodifying what standards of quality are, it makes it, we have to compensate in order to meet the needs of the students we have. We have to compensate for that somewhere. Now, we know that we advocate and have been advocating, and we're not the only division that advocates at the state level for appropriate funding for the needs of these students that Dr. White highlighted here. But the state, that's how they fund right now, is based on standards of quality, ratios per student, per need, based on what the state has set. So I just want to highlight that we basically went from hiring and from employing 50 EL teachers to 85 in 1 year with one change in state code to actually meet the real needs of our students. And that's just one subgroup.
Piggyback just really quickly. That is why we've been so passionate about the funding, is because when you think about that, we need a little bit of extra pushes to make sure that our kids are getting their needs met, not just in the home, but in the classroom, name, need, and strength. So I just wanted to thank you. That was one thing I was going to highlight, but that is one reason why we've been passionate. So I'm grateful that with your opening remarks today, was very touching, so I appreciate that. And I thank you, Dr. White, for being intentional, for keeping the main thing. So thank you.
Thank you all for that.
All right, very good. So at this time, I'll turn it over to our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Chris Perkins, to provide updates on our ongoing boundary study and our capital projects.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the board, and members of City Council. I bring to you, at your request, updates on certain items. Let me give a caveat. After watching the previous PowerPoint, I am filled with graphics, so I may have to explain because it's going to be jumbled. From our presentation to your screen, it's jumbling it.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out why that happens.
I understand. So what I want to do is first, let's start with Preston Park Elementary. During the winter months, we had significant progress. We actually made up 5.5 weeks that we had fallen behind. Once we encapsulated that with the exterior of that building, we made up a lot of time. And we're also, because we have made up that time, demolition will actually start as soon as school is out for the existing school that they're in now. We will move that staff to Breckenridge so they can work through the summer. The number one thing we want to mention about this project, it is on time and on budget. So that's fantastic. Also, as a reminder to you, the funding the funding lines that we use to fund this project, it's about a $44 million project with contingency. About $16 million of that came from our past capital improvement fund and the SCAP grant, which is the school's construction assistant program through the state. So that was a lot of help there to move forward. Next, for capital needs for fiscal year 27, in our process, we have submissions from each school. We had 22 school submissions. 27 new projects were requested. Of those, 9 were capital improvement projects. These are the larger projects with the larger dollar attached to them. For previous and current submissions, we have about 5.1 that are unfunded for capital improvement and about 3.8 that are unfunded for capital maintenance. None of these numbers include the high school overcrowding estimates, and there's a reason why. First, we're grateful for the one-time funding provided in the appropriation of $4.3 million. However, without a sustainable continuing cost, without a sustainable fund source now, continuing costs, we're worried that we cannot meet that. So we put that project on hold for further discussion. We have used two independent reports to look at how we address our facilities and how we look at the boundary study because they're so interconnected. The first study we had completed by a third-party consultant, that was completed in August of 2024. That consultant went in and looked at every building that we have in Roanoke City Public Schools and assessed each building for educational adequacy. Then we took that report and brought to you at several past joint meetings updates from that report involving high school overcrowding and our elementary schools that are in need. The second report that we're using to guide our boundary study is we're working with a third-party expert that is a nationally recognized expert in school planning. That report was finished March 5th, and I'll highlight some of both reports as I move through the presentation. First, I want to make sure that we're clear on enrollment data. There are so many numbers out there that people have a hard time understanding what we're talking about. For us, I am talking about actual pre-K through 12 enrollment that we submitted to VDOE at a point in time, September 30th, 2025 for this school year. That includes pre-K, and that's an important aspect of this. The second is Virginia Department of Education has a funded average daily membership that you heard Ms. Jackson speak of just a moment ago. That was based on March 31st, 2024 number of 12,789. You may have seen that in a report that City Council received in November of 2025. And then next, it's been in the news, Weldon Cooper. Weldon Cooper uses K-12 enrollment. So it eliminates pre-K. We're worried about who's actually in our schools. That's important. And they worry about K-12 for estimates. For the average daily membership for funded schools, they eliminate pre-K and they eliminate students with intensive support needs. So because those come from a different funding formula, and trust me, they don't fund that the same way they do with our SOQ. We have to, provide extra money for that. So for the purposes of what I'm going to talk about going forward in this presentation, we are looking at actual pre-K enrollment from September 30th, a point in time that we send to DOE. Keep in mind that fluctuates throughout the year. Students come and go, and those numbers are, any point in time could be different. So here's where I'm worried that the graphics are going to kind of blow up here, but we're going to give it a shot. So let's start with, well, no, that actually hit right, so perfect. So the old Preston Park School, when we worked in the March 5th report from our third-party consultant, they gave us projections on the high end, on the moderate end, and on the low end. And the reason for that is there's different things that impact our division as we go forward. Same things that impact you as a city government. Looking at Preston Park, had we not built that school, we would have been over capacity no matter what projection we use, high, moderate, or low. That school would have been there. But now, because we have right-sized that school, we'll have over 600 students in that school in the fall, which will be great because that'll help us relieve, for instance, Monterey, which I've highlighted. Monterey lacks programming for its attendance zone. They have no preschool. So all the preschoolers that go to Monterey have to go to somewhere else. And that's a transportation issue because we have to bus them somewhere else. They also can't support self-contained classrooms for students with disabilities. They don't have enough room for that. So by bringing Preston Park online, it helps us address Monterey as an example. Moving forward, you heard me talk about the study, the feasibility study conducted by Spectrum, our third-party consultant. In that study, they identified 3 elementary schools in our district that are deemed educationally inadequate. Now, let me explain that. That does not mean that we can't teach in those schools. What that means is the buildings are old. They have a low profile. It means low floor to ceiling. So it's not adequate by today's standards. These schools are also, if you've ever been to one of those schools, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You walk in one classroom and the kids all turn and look at you, and that's the hallway. And you walk into 4 other classrooms and disrupts every child. So there's no exterior corridor like a hallway in schools that we have now. The other thing is open campuses. If you're familiar with these schools, they have little tunnels that we built around to enclose them. Fishburne is another school that we haven't enclosed. We just encapsulated that with a fence. So that's examples of those. So that feasibility said we needed to address that. Now, I'll have a slide later on in the presentation kind of explain the phases on how we propose to go about addressing these. Next is, and this is also going to go to that slide I just mentioned. Wasena stays over capacity no matter what projection we have. Crystal Springs stays over capacity for the high projection, and Highland Park stays over capacity for the highest projection. But we intend in the third phase of this to address those capacity issues, and this is functional capacity. This is meaning having space. Now, let me give you a caveat on the next point, and that's the high schools. Think about, as I'm explaining this, think about this. We may have a physics class that has 12 students in it. That class they need a classroom to teach physics. However, we may have an Algebra 1 class in the high school that may have 36 students in it. That technically, we need 2 classrooms to really break that apart and reduce that. Just imagine teaching 36 high schoolers Algebra 1. So that's when we talk about overcrowding, you got to keep that in the back of your mind. But functional capacity is a key. We're over even if you take away that example I just gave. And we stay over at all 3 of the projections from our third party at both high schools. So no matter the projection, we stay over in that situation. So let's talk about those projections. A high projection assumes that if there's favorable economic growth and housing conditions change, we may have more students than expected. Keep in mind, we have a low cost of living in Roanoke, and I'm going to go a little bit more detail on that. That is a draw with favorable conditions and housing development. Low projection assumes higher inflation or economic pressure, and you can see the differences in the net increase there. But that all has a planning implication. We have to plan for that. And that's not easy. It's kind of like when you're planning your capital improvement. You come back every year and you look at what you said, and we use a 10-year plan, as you well know, because it was a council request. And we have to come back and adjust that. So every year we have to go through, in our capital improvement plan, we go through all of these scenario-based planning items. The primary methodology that's used by Weldon Cooper and our third-party consultant is cohort tracking. They track from kindergarten to first grade to second grade, and they track the cohort that starts together. And so that's how we use it. But there's also supplemental data that we look at and our consultants look at. Birth trends, housing, GIS analysis. A lot of these things work together and are well suited for slow changing populations. So the projection that is recommended by our third party is the moderate projection. A couple of things about this projection. You see that we see a decrease in pre-K to 5. That may be related to birth rates, and I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a second. You see that there's a projected decrease in middle school as they matriculate through the grades. Usually middle school, there is a change, and we see students either going to private school or homeschooling. But then at the 9th and 12th grades, there's only a projection of a decrease of 45 students, that's why we're saying the high schools are going to be stable for the next 10 years. And there's multiple reasons for that. And so let's talk about, for instance, the moderate projection when you look at the high schools particularly. And I said it, and our experts say it, we expect enrollment to remain stable at the secondary level. The reason that, and this is not just unique to Roanoke, it is nationwide, you see an increase at the 8 to 9 level. A lot of times you have students returning. And in Roanoke, for us, you have them returning from homeschool potentially for athletics or for governor's school, which is a big draw. Or you see the promotion or credit achievement of the students, which would make the 9th grade higher because they may be held back because they don't have the credits to be a 10th grader. And so some of those things may be contributed to that. But what we noticed is historically for the previous 10 years, Roanoke its ratio stayed above 100% from the 8th to 9th grade, which adds to the overcrowding in our high schools. The birth rate ripples that we're seeing in elementary through this 10 years will make its way to secondary. The amount of the impact will be dependent on a couple of the things that I'll point out. But you can see here from the live birth rates in the city of Roanoke, the data is preliminary. We don't have 25 data yet, and it's only preliminary for 24 data. But you can see the change after COVID and where we're at with live births. And that's important to know as one variable to look at. So the planning implications, just to demonstrate it, here's where you see the 8 to 9 cohort, and you can see the difference. That ratio is about 116% on average as you look at the other grades as they come through the previous 10 years. So let's talk about something that's hard for the models to capture, and that is the housing and domestic migration that occurs into our city. For example, families moving from high-cost D.C. or Northern Virginia, like our low cost of living here, there is a draw. It's the hustle and bustle, and we don't have rush hour. And I love it. Okay? So that is a draw. But affordable housing also is a draw. And I know the council has presented affordable housing initiatives. Just go down 460 and you can see some of those. In fact, you can see it here in the preliminary data for multifamily dwellings that permits were issued for. 322, we're waiting on the final data, so this is preliminary. And then for single family, at 88 right now, preliminary for 2025. We hope that continues because that will help us and that will contribute, unfortunately, to our overcrowding potentially as a variable. Immigration volatility is another thing that excuse me, I got tongue-tied. I'm on a roll here, right?
Yes.
Right? So another thing for the processes to really, it's hard for them to grasp is this, what we have. We are an exceptionally welcoming city. When I was police chief, we knew it. People come to our city for reasons. And right now, when you look at our EL student enrollment, it has nearly doubled, 97.5% increase. Those are students in seats in Roanoke City Public Schools. And that is important because that has to impact our planning, but capturing that and how we use that, we can only have historical data because there's no forecast models that actually can give us those numbers accurately. So we have to look at what we're doing. Now, I will note that there are some times where that increase slowed. I'll give you an example. There's 3, one in 2016 and one in 2024 that started. But COVID is a prime example of where we saw that increase dip and that, or this increase slow for Roanoke City Public Schools. I'll let you make up your mind on why that is. English learners, we also saw for the 24-25 year an increase of about 15.5% of withdrawals for our students. That's up from the COVID time. Another thing, I'll let you draw your own conclusion on why that is when it comes to immigration to our city. So let's talk about those elementary schools that I mentioned, and I told you I would go into detail. When we started our boundary study, we provided the school board, and we mentioned this to you in some joint meetings, 3 options that we looked at. The first option was to replace all 3 elementary schools. We knew that at the time would be very difficult to accomplish, but we think we can work it within those schools. Remember, they're still useful for learning. We just need to work on them a little bit. Option 2 was to build 2 elementary schools and to replace the 3. We decided against that as well. The school board said, let's take a look at how we can address this through option 3, which is through the boundary study, which was one of your questions. And so what we are looking to do as a district is to balance those. Remember, the boundaries, the attendance zones have not been touched since 2009-ish, and that is when we closed Forest Park, Riley Court, and Huff Lane, and Forest Park Academy went into Forest Park Elementary. Huff Lane is now a hotel, and the Riley Court is used by our Total Action for Progress Head Start program. So we we got approval from the board, and we started a boundary steering committee. That boundary steering committee, they have a policy to follow, but what we want to do is align the students' attendance zones to the building capacity, the functional capacities of those schools. Go back to, do we have enough classes to have physics and algebra and those classes that have high enrollment, as well as those classes that have less enrollment but are important to our programming. So here's the phases that we laid out and was approved by our school board. In the first phase, The initiating event is Preston Park coming online. We hope to bring Preston Park on, right-size that school to just over 600 students. That will relieve some pressure on Monterey to get programming into Monterey, like preschool and self-contained classrooms. It will also allow us, as we work through this next school year, to reduce the enrollment at Round Hill and Westside. Both of those schools go over 700 throughout our year. That's a lot of kids, and over 700 puts them as in fact, Round Hill, it fluctuates between Breckenridge and Round Hill as being the third most populated school in our division, and that's an elementary school. We want to get those numbers down. So that's what we hope to accomplish in phase 1 from 26 to 27. In phase 2, we're going to take that feasibility study work and the work that we're doing with the boundary study, and we're going to address programming that fits in Hurt Park, Lincoln Terrace, and Fairview to offset that with some minor renovations to get to complete that to where we're not being so disruptive for our students, and address that educational inadequacy, if you recall, those lack of corridors and low ceilings. And then in phase 3, we hope to address the overcrowding at Crystal, Wasena, Highland, and Grandin Court. We hope by then we're seeing positive projections as we go forward, and we've addressed that in the 3 phases of this study that we have brought and was approved to go through by our school board. So as a summary, just to recap, Preston Park is on time and on budget, which is fantastic. Our high schools remain over functional capacity no matter the projection. Keep in mind, again, I just want to be thankful of the appropriation for the $4.3 million, but unless we identify some continuing cost funding, we have to put that on pause for right now. And then our boundary and program review is necessary to align our facilities to enrollment. That way, if we get to that 85%, we can make sure all the programming that's needed for that attendance zone is there, and students are with their friends in their neighborhoods together. And with that, I'll take any questions that council or the board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Questions? Ms. Powers?
I have a couple questions. Raleigh Court, you said that's being used by TAP. Is that that school's going to close up and they're not going to use it? Is that accurate?
No, that is not accurate. TAP wants to extend the lease agreement. We are working to do that through the city attorney's office, but a portion of that building is boarded and closed. There was damage to the gym, and the maintenance on that building had not been kept up since 2009 when it was closed. But the section that TAP is in has been maintained.
Can you go back to that page where you had the 3 options? Yes, right there. There's the last is Crystal Spring, Wasena.
Crystal Spring and Wasena are the top 2 that are overcrowded that we want to address.
And Highland
and Grandin Court.
And I just want to say thank you, because I have read y'all's information about how you go about all your buildings and keeping up with them. I just want to say, great job. I love it. Y'all do a really good job.
Well, let me throw out some kudos to Jeff Shulver, the former building official for the city that we hired at Roanoke City Public Schools. His team, Don Richardson, our facilities manager supervisor, Stan Robinson, our building operations director, and Greg Burgess, our capital improvement projects manager.
I just wanted to mention that. I think y'all do a great job. Please tell them how much I appreciate their work.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Nash?
So for Hurt Park, Fairview, and what was the other?
Lincoln Terrace.
And Lincoln Terrace, even with the how do we address, or how are you all going to plan to address the physical capacities of, the rooms, the floor to ceiling ratio, or the hallway design, or the open campus for the security point of view? I get the boundary study, but what about the actual physicals of the buildings?
So we've already done a lot of security upgrades to all 3 of those locations. How we plan to do that is to look at programming. Programming is important. So for instance, the individual buildings at Lincoln Terrace, for example, one building could house a specific program, that would be beneficial, where, remember, at Lincoln Terrace, you don't walk through the corridors, they have actually exterior hallways, but they're in separate buildings. And so we may be able to program that school better, and that will help us. For Hurt Park, for instance, we may be able to look at opportunities for alternative education for elementary students that we would look at. We may be able to look at how we program that school when it comes to, for instance, preschool. Because remember, we have a large preschool population at Roanoke Academy for mathematics and science. That's another thing that the boundary committee will look at as we go through these phases. And then when you get to Fairview, keep in mind Fairview and Hurt Park are our biggest need schools when it comes to the condition of the buildings and how we're maintaining those. And so when we get to Fairview, Fairview has been connected nicely with what I call they're tunneled. We just enclosed in walkways. But they still have those classrooms where you have to start at one and go through the other. So some minor renovations there will help us. The height of the school, we're not going to be able to address. So it has to stay in elementary school. So if there was programming recommended for like a middle or high school program, no way, it's just too low of a ceilings. But we think we can make it work through programming and a couple of renovations here or there.
So going back to the trailers, if we're not using the $4.3 million, the question is, just in the spirit of transparency for us here and the public, are we using that, are we kind of putting that back into a deferred maintenance? How is that accounted for in our deficit? Whereas if we're not going to use it for the trailers because of ongoing costs, then what is that money going to be used for then?
Well, that was appropriated for specific need. We would have to send that back to council for a reappropriation and a request.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just was able to confirm that, so we'd certainly be open to receiving that. Yeah.
And procedurally, would that be the board would have to take action to do something different with the funds as a board, and then that request from the board would come back to council potentially? And we do know that we are deferring maintenance in the current budget that we submitted categorically.
That is correct.
A handful of days ago.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that was out there. Thank you.
Yeah.
One question. When I had a breakfast with my school board buddy, one of the things that, question that he had that came up was about the, I forget what you call them, the gyms, the blow-up gyms.
The sprung gyms.
Sprung gyms, and why they can't be reused for the purposes of expanding room at our two high schools. Can you talk to those? I did see them the other day. I had to go see it for myself, and I understand, but could you explain that?
Yes. So a sprung gym is essentially canvas over a metal and wood structure. To take those down would be more expensive than buying one outright at this point and relocating it. Those are old structures. They're loud. They are hard to maintain. And while it was a solution for the moment, based on the totality of circumstances the school board went with, we would like to avoid sprung structures going forward just because of, they don't last.
And they're too noisy for classrooms, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you just have to stand in there, the wind flaps on the outside. That's why it works well for gym. Kids, especially elementary kids, they can be very loud.
I got to visit that one when we got a tour of Preston Park, and I
That's
got to
correct.
see it in its reality.
I think those must have been designed around the same time as Bradford pears.
Yeah, that was a great idea when they were put in, right? Until they start falling on cars.
Yeah, really beautiful, but not so good. Other questions? Okay. Well, I think to wrap up, I just wanted to share a couple other things in terms of next steps that we're taking as colleagues. We've already begun conversations as colleagues around a couple of questions, and I want to share those with you all as we continue to build these out. And we've been able to talk about some of these today. First of all, what is a common shared goal we can work on together as colleagues to support both the city and our schools? And that's a broad question as well as a funding question. And then the second is, what mutual steps can we take to restore a relationship and lead to reconciliation as partners? So we're still having those conversations. Some themes are emerging through those that we're going to address and continue to work on, but I wanted to let the public know that we're doing that work. I also wanted to share just a couple of process things. The school board adopted your categorical budget, and that's been sent to city administration. We are now in the process of finishing up our budget development. So next Monday, April 23rd, the city manager, Ms. Turner, will present a proposed budget, and that's all it is. It's a proposed budget. Following that, we will have a series of community meetings, April 9th and April 16th. That's, one will be at Williamson Road Library, and the other will be at South Roanoke United Methodist Church. Then we will have an additional public hearing for the budget, all moving toward a May 14th. I wish I could remember all these dates, but it's a mid-May budget adoption. Alongside that, we are in the process of, this year we have 2 positions on the school board. We usually have 2, 2, and 3, 2, 2, and 3. This year's 2. Dr. Jameson is not eligible for reappointment, and so we're looking at 2 positions, and Mr. Link is an incumbent. We had 10 people apply, which is exciting, that we have that number of people willing to do this work, and I think that's great. I can remember some years when we had to extend the deadline because we didn't have enough applications, so that's really great. So we will be meeting to discuss of those applications, how many people we want to interview. Those will be open to the public. We will post the dates for when those will happen. Then, as required by state code, we will also have a public hearing so that those finalists can encourage anyone that wants to come and speak on their behalf to come to that public hearing and do that. That public hearing has not been set yet, but please watch for details on that. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on those 2 processes. Okay? Well, anything else, Annie?
I don't think so. I think that was everything we had on our agenda, and I don't know if there were any other comments or things that any fellow board members needed to ask or say before we wrap for today, or Dr. White.
Sure, Madam Chair, I'll just, again, I thank you for your time and for your attention as we gave you lots of updates today. I know that we are short on time, but I appreciate what was said at the start of this meeting about reconciliation and about this shared commitment to moving forward. I believe that communication is the key. I do believe also that that's what the public expects from all of us. And so to that end, I want to make sure that I'm doing my part as superintendent of Roanoke City Public Schools. Ms. Turner, I'll be reaching out to your office. There was a time when we would have monthly meetings. I believe that we need to restore those monthly meetings so that we have that type of communication. So I'll be reaching out to you sometime soon. So thank you so much. Thank you.
So,
Dr. White,
yeah.
before you leave, I'm sorry, my colleague here had a very good question. We did not give an update on the Community Empowerment Center and how that's going. Can you
Absolutely.
quickly share with us how that's going?
The Community Empowerment Center is rolling right along, and it's fabulous. And I'll say that because we have served thousands of individuals, families who are coming in for registration support, coming in for language support, coming in for immunization support, and we can see by the sheer numbers that it was needed. We did a needs assessment when we were at the very beginning stages of planning to ask the community what is it that they would need in order to feel supported, and that's how we planned for the Community Empowerment Center, and we can see that location is really paying off and meeting the needs that the community asks for. So I'm proud of our leadership team. I'm proud of our teachers. I know that, again, there may be times when we disagree, but I would hope that we would all agree that serving our community is so vitally important in this way, making sure that our students are engaged, that they're learning, that we're keeping our focus and our emphasis on the babies that we have behind us. I know you're not babies. I know you're not babies, but I always say that even if they have mustaches, they're still our babies, right? And so just keeping our focus that, yeah, we may not see eye to eye on every single thing, but I think on the things that are important, we can agree on those things.
Yeah.
And it's time to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I did just want to remind the public that may not be aware of this. Chair Appel and myself and the superintendent and city manager will be setting up these monthly meetings. We think it's important that we all understand the holistic picture for the city and the schools. I think that will be extremely helpful. You may or may not know that every city council member has a school board buddy, and our goal is to meet with each other every month. And that happens whether, even when there's change in personnel on the different bodies. So that's also our commitment moving forward. So thank you all for your presence today and our continued work together. And we will recess for 10 minutes and then we'll resume here in chambers.
Spring Fund Drive, and today is New Member Monday. Contributions for new contributors to Radio IQ. Your donations will be matched 2-to-1. David and I will be here throughout the afternoon during the World and then All Things Considered to bring you a few more details on that. But right now, go to radioiq.org or call 1-800-856-8900. That's 1-800-856-8900 and make your contribution today. Thank you.
Support for Radio IQ comes from Blue Ridge Cancer Care. Cancer services in Bedford, Blacksburg, Allegheny, Pulaski, Roanoke, Rocky Mount, Salem, Lexington, Wytheville, Princeton, and Lewisburg. BlueRidgeCancerCare.com.
It is a problem in many major cities around the world. Rent is too high, and buying a place that has become increasingly out of reach. Here's the basic analysis. For the last decade, people's incomes have not kept pace with the rising costs of housing. That's true globally. This week, we're zooming in on the housing picture in 4 cities on 4 continents. Today, we go to Seoul, South Korea, where young couples moving into their first homes often start with what's known as a jeonse. A tenant puts down a huge sum of money, more like a deposit, but bigger, and then they live rent-free. When they move out, they get the entire amount back. For generations, it was seen as an affordable way for newlyweds to get their start, but not anymore. Jason Struther in Seoul has our story.
Jason입니다. 반갑습니다. I'm headed up to the home of a couple in their 30s. By the numbers, it's a 3-room apartment on the 6th floor of a 22-story building.
그런 리빙룸, 다이닝룸이고요. 여기는 저희 굉장히
Hayen, who asked just to go by her first name, shows me around. She lives here with her husband. They moved in just over a year ago. She says it's not their dream home, but it checked their boxes.
사실 이 집에 대해서 뭔가 막 너무 마음에 들어서 왔다기보다는
We needed to find an apartment that was in our budget, she says. It was close to public transportation, and it didn't need any remodeling.
신랑 신부 내립게 인사.
Hayen is a content creator who chronicled her wedding journey, including apartment hunt, on her social media channels. Along the way, she learned a lot about Seoul's pricey housing market. Most Korean couples want to live in new, high-rise apartment buildings. The way they afforded that in the past was with a jeonse. These deposits on rentals have always been a big investment. Usually, couples would come out of their wedding with a jeonse, gifted by family. A jeonse used to be roughly 50% of a home's value, but price tags on these apartments have risen dramatically. In the last year alone, home values rose 13.5%. So along with that, in recent decades, deposits for really nice apartments in Seoul have gone from something in the neighborhood of a couple $100,000 to several $100,000. In really well-to-do areas, you could easily pay close to $1 million. On top of that, every 2 years, tenants have to renew their contracts, and landlords take that opportunity to hike the price and increase the deposit. For some, that arrangement is out of reach. For others, it no longer makes financial sense. Hayen and her husband didn't want to put down that kind of money for a jeonse. They'd need to take out a loan, in which case, why not buy a place? So Hayen says they put off finding their forever home for a little longer and also starting a family.
저희도 자녀를 가질 계획이 당연히 있는데 집 문제가 해결이 돼야 뭔가
She says they want to have a child, but need to find a more permanent home first. They'd like to buy an apartment, but want to do it soon before prices go up any higher. This is a common scenario. Kim Jin-yu is a housing policy professor at Kyunghee University.
아주 직접적으로 영향을 미치죠. 일단은 주거가 불안정한 상태에서 결혼하는
He says there's a direct link between housing affordability and the country's low birth rate. Kim explains that because couples feel unstable in the real estate market, they're putting off marriage as well as having kids. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, South Korea is the only wealthy nation with a fertility rate below 1.0. More people die than are born here each year. The South Korean government has called this a national emergency, and that's prompted authorities to try something new to tackle the housing affordability crisis. Seoul has expanded programs for subsidized housing that includes funding for apartments as well as low-interest loans for deposits. Ho Jung-won, a Seoul housing official, says the goal is to encourage couples to marry and have children.
인구가 줄어들게 되면은 도시의 활력이 줄어드는 부분이 큰 것 같습니다.
He explains that it's unsustainable for a society if the population continues to decrease. Eventually, there won't be enough young people to work and support the elderly. Plus, just fewer young people makes a city less vibrant. The new housing programs could be making a difference. That's 2-month-old Kim Do-ah. Her father, Kim Jung-hak, and mother, Im Yuna, sent me this video. They married last year and received a low-interest Jeonse loan. I gave them a call after Do-ah fell asleep.
그러니까 아무래도 어쨌든 사실 결혼이 집이라는
When you're married, you can't really start your family until you find a home, Kim says.
대출이 되게 많은데 저희가 행복주택이나 이런 나라에서 지원.
Im adds they applied for some other affordable housing programs, but they were very competitive, so they didn't get selected. But now they're eligible for loans meant specifically for couples who just had a baby, and if they get that, they'll move to a bigger place. For the second year in a row, the birth rate in Korea has inched up. That's according to a new government report. But housing prices are rising much faster. For The World, Jason Struther, Seoul.
You are listening to The World on Radio IQ. Thank you so much for being with us on this Monday afternoon. Interesting that in certain parts of the world, how the population growth has stopped or has started to decline. Ironically, just coming up, we'll be hearing about Paul Ehrlich, the famed author of the book, The Population Bomb. He died last week at the age of 93, and his book argued that the rapid global population growth would outstrip food supplies, leading to famine and environmental collapse, and we'll hear about his legacy coming up in the very next segment. Those are the kind of contrasting points of view and stories that you hear and you get when you tune in for The World on Radio IQ. I'm All Things Considered host Craig Wright, joined in studio today by Radio IQ News Director David Seidel, and it is our 2026 Spring Fund Drive.
Great day to make your contribution in support of Radio IQ, in support of the context that you get from the world. I think that's what you were talking about there, Craig. You hear about these issues, whether it's housing, whether it's population demographics, the declining birth rate. You hear about it in one country and how they're dealing with it. We deal with many of the same issues here in the United States, in Virginia. And so are there lessons that can be learned, maybe a two-way street of how those issues can be addressed? It's all part of the context that public radio and programs like The World try to bring you day in and day out. And I think The World does a great job of that and bringing that international perspective.
Absolutely. Think about how often you listen to Radio IQ and how often it's with you, whether it's in your car, in the kitchen, or through your smart speaker. We are your daily companion. We provide you the information that starts your day and the stories that help you unwind. But this companionship is now entirely dependent on your generosity. We're part of your daily routine, so please make us a part of your monthly budget. A $12 monthly gift would make a world of difference and help keep us around just a while longer. You can do that by going to radioiq.org and clicking the red donate button at the top of the page. You can also call us at 1-800-856-8900. There's also that red donate button on your Radio IQ app that you can find that there, or perhaps you've received an email from us this morning. Follow the link on that. It will also take you where you need to go to make your contribution. But we ask that you help us keep going with our spring fund drive and throughout the week by going to radioiq.org or by calling 1-800-856-8900.
And if you've never made a donation to Radio IQ, never been a member of this public radio partnership, today would be a great day to do it, because that $12 donation on this new Member Monday will be matched 2-to-1, effectively tripling the support of the station. That $12 will be matched 2-to-1, so that turns into $36 of impact every month for Radio IQ. You can make your donation at radioiq.org or by calling 1-800-856-8900. We need 6 more donors during this hour of the world to stay on track to our hourly goal here, and we feel like we can make that this afternoon with your help right now. radioiq.org, 1-800-856-8900. That's 1-800-856-8900, and thanks.
This is The World. I'm Marco Werman. In 1968, biologist Paul Ehrlich made a provocative prediction. The number of people in the world was growing too quickly, and that growth, he said, would outpace food production, causing widespread famine and environmental collapse. This was the argument at the center of Ehrlich's book, The Population Bomb. Ehrlich died last week at the age of 93. Michael Geruso is a co-author of After the Spike, which assesses the problem of depopulation. He told me that despite being wrong, Ehrlich's ideas have had a lasting influence.
Ehrlich warned that if we didn't get the population under control, that we were going to starve ourselves to death. And that thinking, which wasn't just from Ehrlich, influenced generations of policymakers and the general public in ways that ultimately led to some pretty coercive policies around the world. So these ideas found homes in India and China, where there was coercive reproductive policy, forced sterilizations, forced abortions. And in the U.S., foreign aid policy was conditioned in some cases on the receiving country implementing population control.
Is it clear that those responses from different nations were a function of what Ehrlich was predicting?
I think you can trace a very clear line between the zero population growth movement and the sort of anti-human population control movement.
That was more forceful than I'm used to. Yeah.
Keep going.
Thank you all for your patience as we continue our 2:00 p.m. session of Roanoke City Council. The Council of the City of Roanoke is seeking applications for various vacancies on council-appointed authorities, boards, commissions, and committees. You can access an online application at roanokeva.gov. We're going to move now quickly into our presentations and acknowledgments. And first of all, at all of our 2:00 meetings, we do shout-outs on behalf of council members about good things that are happening in the life of the city between our meetings. And so I'm going to turn to Councilwoman Powers to get us started today.
Sure. So I'd like to give a shout out to Downtown Roanoke Incorporated and Freedom First Bank for doing the St. Patrick's Day Parade this past Saturday. We had a lot of people there. It was absolutely wonderful to see that many people in our city having a great time, eating in our restaurants. So a big shout out to everybody and the city employees that worked to make that happen as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Nash?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of the past festivities that were going on all around downtown. I did not participate in the parade, but I definitely went and it just kind of walked around, had a few beers, a few responsibly, of course. But I was really pleased with the energy There was a really good vibe among the people that were in our downtown this weekend, and I'm very thankful that, you know, from all accounts of what I've heard, there were no crazy incidences that made Miss Turner send us a text message. You know, I'm gonna knock on wood and pray to God that it continues to stay that way for a while. But I'm glad everyone had a fun St. Patrick's Day, a safe St. Patrick's Day, and it's always great to see our downtown that packed.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a few. I want to also, was not able to march in the parade either, but I did go downtown afterwards, and it was a very festive atmosphere. I had a good time down there for a little while, and I agree, it was really good to see downtown so full of people, and glad to see that our businesses were busy. Hope that that was a really good weekend for them. I also want to thank, the reason I couldn't make it to the parade is I messed up my scheduling, and I did a cleanup in Washington Park that morning. So I want to thank everyone who came out to that and learned a lot about the stream restoration project that Stormwater has done there in on Lick Run in Washington Park. And then my last thank you, I want to give a shout out to the Friends of Mountain View and the Roanoke Valley Preservation Foundation. I got a tour of the Fishburne Mansion over in Mountain View Recreation Center, trying to find it, on March 4th. And it's really impressive to me, all of the volunteers that are stepping up to help us get that facility back to where it needs to be so that it can be an amenity to the city, so that we can have events and things there. And we know that it needs millions of dollars in repairs. And I'm just grateful that we have people that are willing to put in the work to do some of those repairs themselves. They're willing to raise some money. And I think that there were some exciting ideas that came out of that as to how we might move forward in the future at that facility. So maybe more to come, but I think that's enough for one day. So thank you very much.
Councilwoman Sanchez-Jones.
Well, I have to thank everyone that was involved in putting together such a wonderful event as the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And to the businesses, I was happy to go by a lot of the businesses and they were full. So congratulations, and I hope they made some good money.
Thank you. Councilman Hagan.
So to reiterate, the parade, it was amazing. One thing that I was able to enjoy is the opening night for Buddies over at Exit Pursued by Bear Theater, or the Bear Theater. They have an upcoming show this weekend, and I wanted to highlight this because it's written by somebody that went to Hollins. It's the directorial debut of Gene Morano, and he's works at WFIR. So highly recommend, if y'all can get tickets, highly recommend.
Thank you. And I would just add, last week I had the honor of attending, along with Councilmember Nash, a ribbon cutting for what's called the Agape House for Veterans. Agape Home Health has for years wanted to renovate houses for veterans to help us eliminate veterans homelessness in the community. And it was so touching to be there. And as I was walking with the mother of the woman who's opening it, she just looked into my eyes and she said, 20 years, 20 years. And what she was saying to me is, this has been their vision for 20 years to open this house, and to see it come to fruition was a very touching moment. So thanks to Asia and her family and everyone who's involved in the new Agape House on Salem Avenue for veterans. Now I'd like to invite Heather Fay, Director and Executive Regional Administrator for the Greater Roanoke and New River Valley Small Business Development Center, to join me at the podium for a special proclamation. I'm assuming that's why you have an acronym, SBDC, right?
Yes,
Shortened version. Okay, here we go. This is in celebration of Small Business Development Centers. Whereas SBDC Day is observed on the third Wednesday of March each year, and since its inception in 2017, has recognized the nationwide network of nearly 1,000 small business development centers and their collective accomplishments in helping America's small businesses succeed. Whereas on March 18, 2026, the 10th annual SBDC Day will unite SBDCs and the hundreds of thousands of clients they serve by sharing success stories and demonstrating in real time the significant impact that they have on entrepreneurs and the broader small business community. Whereas America's SBDCs serve as a proven and cost-effective foundation for small business growth, helping clients secure $5.2 billion in financing, generating $5.1 billion in sales, creating 68,000 new full-time jobs, and achieving sales growth at twice the rate of average United States businesses, while 96% of clients would recommend SBDC services to others. Whereas small businesses are the backbone of local economies, including the city of Roanoke, and SBDCs empower individuals to turn business ideas into thriving enterprises that strengthen neighborhoods, create jobs, foster innovation, and contribute to long-term economic vitality. Whereas, as new business applications continue to rise nationwide, and emerging sectors such as medical care, wellness services, advanced manufacturing, and technology expand, SBDCs provide the guidance, education, and resources necessary for aspiring and existing entrepreneurs to navigate challenges and seize new opportunities. Now, therefore, I, Joseph L. Cobb, Mayor of the City of Roanoke, do hereby proclaim March 18, 2026, throughout this great 8-time All-America city as Small Business Development Center Day. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, and members of council, and Ms. Turner. Thank you for being our host. I know we ask a lot of you all. We were in a unique situation. We were one of 3 localities that host a local SBDC, so we get to be really engrossed, and my colleague Mark Nelson is here somewhere. So work closely with Mark and his team for economic development, and we just want to thank you for our work, and we're excited to celebrate on Wednesday. Thank
you.
You're welcome.
Let's get up here and we'll grab a picture. Sure. Okay, now we're going to move on to our hearing of citizens upon public matters, and this is an important part of all of our meetings that we set aside as a priority for citizens to be heard. All matters will be referred to the city manager for response, recommendation, or report to the council as she may deem appropriate. As you come forward today, the mic is already on. There's a little box in the corner. Every speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The green light means go, the yellow light means you have about a minute left, and then red means stop. And if you're just in mid-thought and trying to finish up, we'll work with you to do that. And our city clerk, Ms. McCoy, is going to call 2 speakers at a time. So the first speaker, come on up, and then the second speaker, that'll just notify you that you're next. Okay?
Ready? The first speaker will be Kevin Agard.
Agard?
Agard, okay.
Right. Welcome, thank you.
Hi all, thanks for having me. My name is Kevin Agard. I live in the greater Day Early neighborhood. I've got 2 kids at Grandin Court. I'm the PTA treasurer there. For my day job, I am a data scientist for a public sector consulting firm up in DC. I do a lot of work with government agencies, looking at reporting, monitoring, auditing their financial offices and HR systems. So it felt very familiar to be going through the city budget and the school district budget, looking at all those things. It's not exactly a Friday night, but it's a Friday morning. One of the things that I wanted to look at was the per unit budgeted expense across the government. So public safety, $99 million for 800 plus positions. Parks and Rec, like 14.6 million for 115 so odd positions. I did the same thing, Roanoke City Public Schools, 2,700 people. You look at their budget. On that list of about 10, I threw out parking because it's weird. The school district comes in 10th, dead last. If you look at the average annual salaries, I got FOIA requested data for city employee salaries, school district employee salaries. You look at the average annual salaries across the city. School district is 9th out of 10, second to last. It is already stressed and pushed. So I just wanted to come advocate to make sure that we maintain our funding for the schools so we don't find ourselves locked in a cycle of having to fight for funding every year. I liked the formula. It was working. I was one of those people that the chief operations officer from RCPS talked about. We lived in Colorado. We moved here because Roanoke has a lot of good things to offer that we really liked. When I'm going through the city budget and I'm looking at various line items to try and think, all right, well, I might wish I can drive my car without gas, but I can't. I can't just say fund the schools, good luck. There's got to be some other options. I found myself kind of confused at some of the line items. $1 million for strategic management and administration. I don't really know what that means. 3.3 on economic development. That could be cool, but I don't know exactly where that's going. 5.2 million on memberships and affiliations. I don't know what those are. I'm assuming it's not like National Geographic. It's probably something different than that. $6.9 million on residual fringe benefits. If we don't have money to fund our kids, do we have money to fund residual fringe benefits? Maybe. Again, I don't know. Spending my daytime doing things like this for a long period, I was finding myself hoping for more transparency, more clarity on what these line items were for. So you guys could make your case to us, the situation you're in, the sensitive nature of the balance that you guys are trying to achieve with all of the municipal services you provide and also trying to fund the schools. So that was my pitch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you thoughtfulness.
The next speaker, Laura McKay, and Ellie Bundrick.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, and City Council members. I'm Laura McCage. I'm a parent of 2 Roanoke City Public School students. When I moved to Roanoke 10 years ago, good schools were among the top reasons we chose Roanoke City. You see, my husband and I moved here from Phoenix, Arizona, a city and a state with a large retiree tax base, with traditionally low priority given to public school education funding. In 2009, I was a Phoenix resident when the nation was in a recession. The city leaders had to make really tough choices to deal with some budget shortfalls, much in the same way that you all do today. Public school funding was slashed, and a precedent was set to systematically reduce funding over the next decade. Teacher-student ratios that were already challenging became nearly impossible for teachers to manage. Attrition climbed, and graduation rates remained some of the lowest in the nation. Most folks I knew who wanted to start a family in Phoenix would move to a neighboring community with better schools. And I saw this happen time and time again, the achievement gap literally widening before my eyes, disproportionately harming lower-income students. And eventually I noticed how few voices were left to speak up for public school funding. The way I understand Roanoke's new school funding policy sounds very familiar to this story. By changing the funding model, you have hamstrung the school's ability for capital improvement planning, addressing maintenance needs, ensuring adequate staffing. This will make it more difficult for our schools to continue to operate at a level that attracts young families like mine was 10 years ago to move to Roanoke City. The people that put you in these positions strongly disagree with these funding changes, which failed to consider the ripple effect that this might have on graduation, employment rates, school safety, and lengthening our very own achievement gap here in Roanoke. You city council members have the power to make the ultimate long-term investment in Roanoke while you're sitting in these seats. Restoring the school's funding and returning to the previous funding model will demonstrate to your constituents and to young families considering a move to Roanoke City that this is a place that cares about education and opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Do we have Ellie?
Welcome. You want to pull that mic down just a little bit? There you go. Perfect.
Hello, my name is Ellie Bundrick, and I'm a 5th grade student at Highland Park Elementary. I'm here today to talk to you about the budget cuts for Roanoke City Public Schools, including Play-Doh, activity buses, and many more programs crucial for students' education. First of all, you are trying to cut the Play-Doh program. I may not be in Play-Doh myself, but I know how impactful it is to students who are. In addition, I have many friends and peers who rely on Play-Doh to better challenge them. If we didn't have this program, then we would have many students who would not engage in school and potentially drop out. Secondly, you are trying to cut activity buses for our public schools. This may impact many students because some struggle with having single parents, their parents work a lot, or they may have other situations. Cutting the activity buses will make kids less engaged in school because they cannot access the activities that would make them more successful in social and educational skills. These are just some of the programs you are trying to cut. In conclusion, cutting funding for the Roanoke City Public Schools is not a wise idea. I'm not only speaking for myself, not only my classmates, not only my school, but all schools in Roanoke City. I hope that you make the right decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
The next two speakers, Jessica Blandy, and Frida Cathcart.
Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, and city manager. My name is Jessica Blandy, and I'm a resident of Roanoke City. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Mayor Cobb, I had to insert this line in. I'm very grateful that you spoke on reconciliation today, and I want my message to be construed as a pathway to that reconciliation. I'm here because I care deeply about this city. Roanoke is a place that many of us have chosen to build our lives, raise our families, and invest our time and energy in making our community stronger. But caring about our city also means expecting our local government to operate with transparency, clear communication, and accountability to the people it serves. Today, I want to speak about those expectations in the city of Roanoke. Over the last several years, 5, which includes some of your time on this board and some not, I've reached out to members of City Council and to the city manager with questions and concerns about issues affecting our community. However, I'm standing here today with a stack of emails that date back to 2021 that have never received any response. I understand that city leaders are busy, and I understand that you receive many messages. But when citizens repeatedly reach out and receive no messages at all, that sends a message. And unfortunately, the message it sends is that citizen voices don't matter. Transparency and responsiveness are not optional. They are fundamental responsibilities of public service. On this dais, there have been recent discussions referencing we might need to have backroom conversations among council members and about non-disclosure agreements that members of council have signed. For many citizens, hearing about things like this raises serious concerns. Local government should be the level of government closest to the people. We should be working in a park together, making our city a better place. Decisions that affect our daily lives, our taxes, our schools, and our neighborhoods should not feel like they're happening behind closed doors or through private agreements that the public can't see or understand. A recent example is the restaurant meals tax. When that tax was approved, citizens were told that it would sunset after 2 years. But now, less than 3 months later, there are already discussions about whether or not it should sunset at all. That's concerning. When the government makes a promise, especially about taxes, people expect that promise to mean something. If policies are reconsidered almost immediately after they're passed, it creates the impression that the original commitment was never truly intended to be kept. This is exactly the kind of situation that erodes trust. And trust once lost is extremely hard to rebuild. Transparency doesn't mean that everyone will always agree on every decision. Citizens should and hopefully do understand that governing is difficult and these times are filled with challenging choices. We might not get our way, but transparency means explaining decisions clearly. Can I finish up? I'm 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
But transparency means explaining decisions clearly. Transparency means communicating openly with the public. Transparency means responding when citizens reach out. And transparency means avoiding even the appearance of decisions being made behind closed doors. When those things are missing, people begin to feel disconnected from our government in a way that I think we all feel on various levels of government right now. When people feel disconnected, they begin to lose confidence that their voices matter. Roanoke City deserves better than that. So today I'm asking for 4 simple things. Respond to citizens. Communicate clearly and consistency. Be transparent about how decisions are made. And lastly, honor the commitments that are made to the public. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your spirit of reconciliation.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Cathcart.
Thank you for this opportunity. I am grateful to be able to tell you all today that I'm 100% recovered from Lyme disease. I'm living a miracle, and for that I'm very happy. This has given me an opportunity to pick up some threads that I had to leave behind because I was really focused on healing and getting my health back. Now that that has happened, I've been turning my attention to my wealth and also my community's wealth and the things I really care about. Before the last council meeting, I sent you urgent emails because it had come to my attention that the Van Blaricons were asking for another extension for their contract in Fishburne Park. This concerned me. I already had a ticket on Amtrak to go up to New York City, but I wanted to make sure that you all had this information. I don't know if you read my email or not, but it had really important information in it, calling for an investigation of why they continue to have financing challenges and for the city not enforcing the contract. They got a real sweetheart deal, a $500,000 property zoned commercial for $10. And in order to get that deal, they were supposed to meet certain metrics. Even before they got the deed, they were supposed to prove that they could have financing. I just bought a car on Friday, and before they let me drive off the lot with the title in my hand, I had to prove to them that I had the money, which I did. That's normal when it comes to things. Apparently, that did not happen when the city released the deed to them. Then the contract requires a $100 a day fee for being out of compliance if they go beyond when the expectations were. I just asked the director of economics if they had been collecting that, and he didn't know. That's something that you should know before you bring something to council asking for an extension, what's happening with the financing. It matters for the community as well as for the people that have the contract. If they can't do it, you're not doing anybody any favors by extending it. I think it's really important that the council and the public know that the Van Blaricons sued me for defamation, a slap lawsuit for $600,000 just a few months after my husband died. And they knew, they got a notice, like all the people in our neighborhood, that he had died because they got an invitation to a celebration of life service. I've never been sued before, and I knew from a lawyer that they didn't have a real case. A few weeks later, after they filed in the courthouse, they sent it, their lawyer sent me an email saying, hey, just send, no, it was a package, just send this to my insurance company, which with the insurance background looked to me like something was very questionable about that. And there's a lot of things questionable about it, but instead of waiting and looking and finding the answer to these things, you all unanimously approved that extension. I find that very disappointing. And it doesn't surprise me that the city is having financial problems when things like that are happening, when there's not transparency, when there's not accountability, and I'm over my time. But I just wanted to bring that attention to you all and say that my background is in insurance, finance, and economics. I'm really respected. Warren Buffett said when I presented to them in Berkshire Hathaway that their managers were listening to me. They implemented all of my suggestions. I live here in Roanoke because I love Roanoke, and if I can be of service to the city, please let me know how, because you all look like you're in trouble, and there are things that I know that might be able to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next two speakers, Angela Bird and Wani Moja.
Welcome.
Hi, guys. I've been here before. Not my first rodeo. So I wanted to first recognize all the parent, teachers, and community people that are here with shirts on and are clearly motivated. Everybody stand up. Kids, get up. This is our only, we've been here for an hour and a half. Put yourselves up. These people have made it a point that at 2 p.m. on a Monday have taken days off, have brought their kids from schools to show you how much we care about public education. We have, okay, I'm going to keep myself together here. I look around at all of these people, and I just think if these many people want to show up on a Monday at 2 p.m., then there must be a reason. We don't just want to come hang out. I've told you before, this is not my jam. I don't want to hang out here. But I will if this is the only way to show you what your constituents want, okay? We will keep showing up. We will keep showing you the things that we find valuable. The things that our community are struggling with is trust and transparency from you all. We have seen, we just keep getting all these articles about things that have coming up financially that just don't fit well. And I don't think they fit well with you guys either. I don't think you expect people to overuse their budgets. I don't think you expect that. I know you don't. This is right in your wheelhouse, right? We don't want that to happen. And what we want to see and be able to trust is that everybody's doing the things they're expected to do. And I think right now, that's just not what we're feeling. I'm obviously not the only one. There will be more people here at 7 o'clock. There will be more people at every single meeting because we are not stopping here tonight and saying, okay, this is enough. Yeah, you guys are right. I think what we're saying right now is that we have people like Kevin Agard that has went through the budget. I'm not him. I don't know all the big words he was using, but what I do know is that he has made a point to go through every single budget and make sure that he feels comfortable or doesn't feel comfortable with it. That makes me comfortable. What I haven't seen from the council is going through and deciding what you need, what you don't need. I know we don't need to know every little thing, but if we can have just a general transparency and understanding, that would be really helpful. Then when I read an article and it says there was overspending here or there, I won't want to cry myself to sleep every night. Okay, we have a bigger issue here, optics. Guys, you are talking about a 2% raise. Why there are staff that can't afford to buy food for their kids. I don't understand where the discrepancy is, and it hurts me to think that it's with you all, because I voted for you. And so it's really hard for me to think that I voted for people that are having a hard time running this. It's a big ship, and I think we need to drill down to the parts of the ship that are causing these discrepancies. And I know that there may be a revenue issue, you can say that all you want, but to me, I only hear these stories. I hear stories about people moving here from all over the country. That's what we did. 7 years ago, my family moved here because we wanted and we believed in the education that you guys were providing. Now I'm worried about that. The fact that none of our kids are leaving here and we're only getting bigger amounts of kids coming here, that's because people are transplanting here. Not just because a lot of people here are having kids, it's because people are moving here. It's because we see what Roanoke could be. And right now, I'm having a hard time seeing that. When I got interviewed with WSLS, she asked me a hard question. She said, do you regret moving to Roanoke? Of course I don't. I would never regret moving to Roanoke. I regret not being active earlier and not making sure that all of my legislation people are doing what they're supposed to do. Because I think that we need to keep people more accountable. I have one more thing. I just want to throw one more thing out there. We vote. I'm a chief or assistant chief during the voting time, and all I can say is all these people are voters. That's why we're wearing a voting shirt. We will either vote for the 3 people that decide that they're going to fund education, or we will not vote for you. And I will make it my personal mission to do that, because that's how much I believe in Roanoke's education system. Thank you.
Welcome. You want to, just pull that down a little bit. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Wani Modra, and I am an 8th grade student at James Madison Middle School of Roanoke City Public Schools. I am speaking on account of the budget cuts made to Roanoke City Public Schools. There are approximately 13,000 students in Roanoke City Public Schools. I know many of them who participate in activities, whether it's a club, sport, or similar. These programs allow students to express themselves and grow as a person. One of the most significant of these programs, or the Plato program, which stands for Pupils Learning Appropriately Together. I got invited to the Plato program 6 years ago when I was in 2nd grade, and the Plato program was very significant to my education journey. Some of these programs, however, may be cut due to the budget cuts. However, the fundamental issue is that this won't just affect the students. Additionally, teachers may lose their jobs due to the budget cuts. Many teachers at James Madison Middle School, in fact, all of them, do their absolute best to support all of the students, and I would hate to see any of them have to leave. Additionally, guardians of the children who partake in after-school activities may need to leave opportunities such as work or similar in order to pick up their children. I recognize the contributions which have been made by this council. However, I implore each member of the council to reconsider their position, as it is essential to the education of all students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And our last speaker is Kathleen Jennings.
Welcome.
He did such a wonderful job. Good afternoon, Council and Ms. Turner. My name is Kathleen Jennings, and I'm a Roanoke City Public Schools parent, an ELL teacher at William Fleming, a Roanoke City Public Schools alumni, and the Central Council PTA Vice President. I want to share my frustration at Roanoke City's proposed underfunding of Roanoke City Public Schools. Roanoke City Public Schools employs 2,778 teachers and roughly 14,000 students, although we saw in there that the number varies, who have roughly 21,000 parents and guardians. In total, these three groups make up 38,000 people, or 38% of Roanoke's population. This is 38% of Roanoke's population who are presently anxious and worried about what next year will look like for their families. As a parent, this is difficult to watch, especially since candidates that I voted for ran on a platform of supporting education. This council, in my opinion, is making a short-sighted decision to underfund Roanoke City schools to cover financial mismanagement through the years, ignoring that in the long run, investing in schools and our students returns $8 to the community for every dollar invested. The future of Roanoke is here, and they're sitting in classrooms in the back of this room right now. Mr. Cobb, when the PTA met with you, you mentioned not being able to find HVAC employees to conduct deferred maintenance. These potential employees are already in Roanoke, and they're receiving these certifications in classrooms at Rotech and Daytech as we speak for HVAC. When we met with Mr. Hagan, he mentioned that in order to decrease overtime accrued by the fire department and police department, they need to fill vacancies. Your future firefighters and police officers are sitting in high school and CTE classrooms right now, taking criminal justice and emergency response classes today. When you underfund our schools, you choose not to develop your workforce. When we met with Mr. Nash, He mentioned the need for high-paying jobs in the Roanoke Valley and suggested the casino was a solution with jobs in hospitality. Right now, students are here taking classes and getting certifications in business, carpentry, barbering, criminal justice, machining, cosmetology, welding, culinary arts, and health and medical. These are jobs with opportunities for growth in established industries. When we invest in education, the return on investment in our students' future is such a high return. The future of Roanoke City is here. They are sitting in our classrooms across all quadrants of the city. And when the Office of...
You can go ahead and finish.
It's very aggressive. The Office of Budget and Management, the city manager, and city council are focused on short-term financial goals caused by previous years of mismanagement and surprises. You're ignoring the long game. Every dollar invested in education returns $8 to our community. I know everyone isn't a math person, but this is a terrific return on investment.
Thank you all very much to everyone who came out and spoke today, and thank you for your patience. All right, we are going to continue now with our item 4 in our agenda, which is our consent agenda. And all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by members of council and will be enacted by one motion. There is typically no separate discussion of the items. If discussion is desired, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Within the consent agenda, we have 4 requests for closed meetings, 1 from my office and 3 from our city attorney. The first is to discuss the 2 upcoming vacancies on the Roanoke City School Board, expiring June 30th, 2026. The second is to consult with legal counsel employed by a public body regarding such specific legal matters, requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel regarding a proposed encroachment permit. The third is to discuss the possible disposal of publicly owned property in the central part of the city, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. And the fourth is to discuss the possible acquisition of property in the northeast part of the city, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. And I need a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Council Members Powers and Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash. Ms. Powers. And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to our regular agenda, item 1 is regarding bids to enter into a parking agreement for unreserved parking permits for the Center in the Square Garage, which is located at 11 Campbell Avenue Southeast in downtown Roanoke. And I will call on our clerk, Ms. McCoy, to open the bids.
I will now open the bid and present the information that I have. Okay. The First National Exchange, LC, proposes and agrees, if its bid is accepted, to enter into and be bound by the parking agreement for unreserved parking permits for the city's Center in the Square Garage, a copy of which is on file in the office of the city clerk for the city of Roanoke, 456 Noel C. Taylor Municipal Building, 215 Church Avenue Southwest, Roanoke, Virginia. Furthermore, the undersigned bidder warrants that it can and will comply with the provisions of such parking agreement. The bidder agrees that monthly payments will be made according to the rates set forth in Section 5 of the above parking agreement for each of the parking permits provided by such parking agreement for the sole use and purpose of providing parking spaces for guests of the hotel to be constructed. Payment is due to the city in accordance with the terms of the parking agreement. Bidder agrees that the number of parking permits will be available under the parking agreement is 20. The bidder agrees to develop, construct, open, and operate a hotel in downtown Roanoke, Virginia by January 31st, 2025, with at least 25 rooms. The bid terms, 20 years, commencing on the date of the final executed version of this parking agreement and ending 20 years thereafter, provided that the successful bidder will have options to renew the term for up to 4 additional 5-year terms for a total of 40 years if all 4 options are exercised. And bidder agrees, if its bid is accepted, to execute, deliver, and perform all terms and conditions of the parking agreement, a copy of which parking agreement is on file in the office of the city clerk, 456 Noel C. Taylor Municipal Building, 215 Church Avenue Southwest, Roanoke, Virginia, 24011, including, without limitation, providing the city with a bond or other security in the amount of $15,000 as required pursuant to Section 15.2-2104 Code of Virginia as amended. The bidder's legal name, the First National Exchange LLC. I'm not sure of the handwriting here, forgive me. And the bidder's identification number, I'm to read that, and it is 11302-946.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any other additional bids?
No other additional bids.
Then I will declare the bid opening closed, and we will refer this to the city manager for review, evaluation, and recommendation to council. And there will be a public hearing regarding this bid tonight at our 7:00 p.m. council session. All right, thank you very much. Item 5 on our agenda is public hearings, and we have none, so we'll move to petitions and communications, and I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Richmond Vincent, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, for a presentation and an update on Melrose Plaza. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor McGuire, members of the City Council, Ms. Turner, Ms. McCoy, and Ms. Carini. I also want to give a recognition to Ms. Angela Vernon, who is the Vice Chair of the Goodwill of the Valleys Board of Directors. I want to thank the Council for the opportunity to share an update on how we're doing with Melrose Plaza. So today I'm sharing how Melrose Plaza is advancing community well-being in Northwest Roanoke through initiatives that address social determinants of health. This includes health, education, economic stability, and social support. Just a reminder that the genesis of this project is to improve the life expectancy of our fellow citizens residing in the zip code of 24017. And just as a reminder, at the last health assessment provided by Carilion Clinic, that the residents in 24017 live 6 years less than those in adjacent communities, which again, that's what really prompted us to really dive in and make a true change in this community. So this presentation highlights the major components and the measurable activity we have captured for the 5 months in 2025. As you know, we had the grand opening in July of 2025. So this is from that time to the end of the year. These are our outcomes. So the goal is not isolated programs. It's a coordinated set of resources in one place that will strengthen the community's overall well-being at one time. So let's start with economic stability. And what I want to begin with is the market on Melrose. The market on Melrose is designed to strengthen economic stability and access by connecting residents to nutritious foods and job opportunities. In sales, and that's how we're kind of measuring our progress there, we generated $2.5 million in sales in 5 months. And that equaled a net loss of $1.5 million. And that entire loss is what Goodwill is subsidizing this project, because we believe it's that important for this community, and it's the foundation of us making a community improve its well-being. Now, this doesn't include the Virginia Fresh Match, which is a program by the Commonwealth that reimburses the grocer 50% of purchases of produce by folks who are on SNAP and WIC. That is now in process, so we want to see that really improve, and we expect it to be about 20% of our overall sales by the end of this year. Even more importantly than the access is that 50% of the employees at the market and the cafe are residents of 24017. And many of these employees have never had a job, and some have had jobs but didn't have the access to health care and benefits and all those things that they'll be getting through our program. So we see meaningful access and local hiring alongside a financial performance reflecting a startup business. Fortunately, Q1 has resulted in a 26% increase over last year. So that's showing you that folks are beginning to get it, and we've known from the beginning it was going to take time because we had to change behaviors from folks going to other grocers way outside their community. So now as they visit and they see that the prices are competitive, it's fresh food, it's a clean facility, it's well merchandised, because that's what this community deserves. And so economic stability also includes wealth building. And I'll use the term wealth building versus financial literacy, because a lot of folks have questioned this, and they have questions about, well, what does financial literacy mean? Because all of us believe we're financially literate. And so wealth building is the position that we're going to take in terms of how we're going to improve this community. So next, I'll cover the Bank of Botetourt's presence and early activity. The Bank of Botetourt targets economic stability through wealth building, knowledge, and financial opportunities. They currently serve 161 consumer customers and 18 businesses. Their recent growth has included 252 new consumer deposit accounts and 26 new business deposit accounts. And on the lending side, they've got 26 new customer loans, and they're working on their business loans. This is really important for this community, because Bank of Botetourt is taking a very individualistic approach at working with folks and really sitting down and explaining how they achieve the wealth building. And so we are very grateful for the Bank of Botetourt. So this gives us a snapshot of uptake, especially on consumer engagement and deposits. While business lending is not yet showing activity in this period, they're working very hard on that. So beyond economic stability, the Melrose Plaza also advances well-being through healthcare access and engagement. That's the Wellness Center. The Wellness Center supports proactive family health. And I want to reinforce proactive, meaning that our goal in this center is to focus on helping individuals before they acquire any type of significant disease or ailment, meaning before they have hypertension, before they have diabetes. If someone does have those ailments, we refer them to New Horizons or Korean Clinic to get a primary care provider. But combining health-focused activities with service utilization, there were 78 health activities conducted in the Wellness Center with 344 attendees, and 22 individuals utilized health services in the center. Health is one piece, education is another. The major driver of long-term outcomes is education, and I know we've heard a lot of that today. So I'm going to take time to just explain a few things on the Excel Center, which is the Commonwealth of Virginia's first adult high school. So let me repeat. The first adult high school in the Commonwealth of Virginia is right here in Roanoke, Virginia, and we should be very proud of that. And the Excel Center focuses on adult learners providing access to a high school diploma and career credentials. Currently, we have 81 students enrolled, but we had over 520 applicants who applied to take part in this adult high school. And I have to share with you, and Mayor Cobb attended our last end of session event that we had, that it is so emotional to watch these adults who have the courage to come back and to get their education. And one that comes to mind is a young man named Jerry, who is 66 years old, and he's one of our students. And it's amazing to hear his story of saying, I'm never too old to get my education. And all we could say was, amen. And so next is the Harrison Museum of African American Culture and Art. And, community well-being has to include culture and connection, and that's where the Harrison Museum comes into play. So the museum's mission is to cultivate awareness and appreciation of the contributions of people of African descent, strengthening social and community well-being. The museum has had 378 visitors, one exhibit, and served 62 youth in a period reflected here. And I know that Mayor Cobb, you also attended one of the special events that the Harrison facilitated about a week or so ago, had great attendance. This was a great opportunity for the community to engage with one another, but also engage with Melrose Plaza. So now I want to pull these activities together into a quick roll-up view of community activities going on here in Melrose Plaza. So across the Melrose Plaza program, there were 461 total community activities offered, which reflected we had 44,586 individuals who visited the plaza in 5 months. 44,586. So to close, I'll summarize how these combined components function as an integrated approach to community well-being. First, Melrose Plaza integrates multiple initiatives to comprehensively address social determinants of health. The combined efforts support economic, educational, healthcare, and cultural well-being, working together toward a stronger community. In short, integrated initiatives improve well-being focus areas and a stronger Northwest Roanoke community supported through the combined work of on-site and off-site partners. And members of the council, Mayor, Vice Mayor, that concludes my update for you today. And so do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Vincent, for a great update on an incredible first year. It's very exciting. Thank you. Questions from council?
Not a question, just a comment. Thank you so much for everything you do. I was actually at the Melrose Plaza last night, and was able to frequent the cafe and the grocery store there, pick up some things. So yeah.
Yeah, the cafe's they're doing such a great
Oh,
job.
yeah.
And and I know folks that went there, like Richmond, you have some fried foods and a lot of things going on over there. And I'm like, yeah, we do. It's good. It's good though. I mean, right? It's good. But we're going to introduce some grilled chicken.
Yeah.
Some things that are going to really help get folks to enjoy some of the more nutritious foods. But we got to sell what people want, right? So.
Yeah, it's good.
Just as long as we have the fried fish. Fried fish.
Well, we'll give you an option.
Yeah.
Councilman Nash. We'll give you an option, fried and grilled.
I'll do half fried and a quarter grilled or something like that.
Ease into it.
Yeah. But I just wanted to commend the work you all are doing. I see it. I always tell people I live literally like a 4-minute drive from Melrose Plaza. I come straight down Lafayette once I leave my street, and I'm at the grocery store. And even my fiance, when she leaves from the VA and comes home, it's convenient for her to stop there. And my grandmother, I live in my late grandmother's home. We've been in that house for about 19 years.
Wow.
And that's the first time, at least, during my lifetime, where a grocery store was that close to the residents in that community.
Yes.
And so you're right, it is going to take time for people to unbreak the habit of going to a Walmart real quick or going to Kroger. But I think when people really start to realize how much time you're saving, how much gas you're saving, and that the prices are basically the dang on same, if not cheaper for y'all's meats. Y'all's meat deals are phenomenal for the, fresh meats. And so it is going to take time. And so I really urge everyone listening to this, everyone in this room, to really market and promote what they're doing at the Melrose Plaza, and really bringing awareness to all of the injustice, also all the work in, that's a formerly redlined area as well that we don't talk enough about. And so the intentionality of how you all are approaching health, wealth building, I'm gonna steal that from you. Wealth building, I love it, and I'm very thankful for all the work y'all are doing.
And thank you for those accolades. And, what I also like to share is that every dollar that's spent in that grocery stays right in that community.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is so important. If we want to really improve, we got to bring dollars. And that's the way I think we can accomplish that. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Vincent. I had a kind of a follow-up question. I love going to the Melrose Plaza, and I'm always thinking about how can we get other folks to go over there and, get people to kind of break that, tradition of not grocery shopping in their neighborhood. I love that there is the Horton Branch Park that the Kiwanis is working on nearby. The library is right there. The Harrison Museum is now open. If we ever have we will have better financial days, I would like for us to consider maybe opening that library on Sundays as a way to maybe bring more people into the plaza. But I did want to ask you a tougher question, I guess. So that first 5 months of 2025, where there was a 1.5 million approximate shortfall that you guys were able to subsidize.
Yes.
Do you have estimates for what you would be able to subsidize, or like next year, the year before, like sort of your plan for, I know when you're opening a restaurant or a business, sometimes you kind of expect to run at a loss for a little while, but how long would you be able to do that before it would, not to scare people, but to rather encourage people, if you care about this and you want it in your neighborhood, we need you to get out there and go shop. But also, is it in your business plan to subsidize it 1.5 million every year? Or, what's the trajectory you would like to see?
Our path is that we want to have the grocery be break even within 5 years. So we have budgeted that over the next remaining 4 years, there's going to be an incremental improvement each year. So last year's 1.5, our goal this year is 800,000, and we're on track to accomplish that. But we went into this knowing that, hey, this is going to take time to build this, build a reputation, and to get folks and change behaviors and really communicate the message. And at the end of the day, we can do all the marketing we want. People still want to know, am I going to get a good price? At the end of the day, how much is it going to cost me to be able to shop there? And one of the things we've done is to make sure to keep prices low, because our goal is not about profitability. Our goal is about providing access. Again, this is an intentional project that is designed to help improve the life expectancy of the folks in that community. So for us, this isn't about, well, we want to have this great profit, because the more we make, it will get reinvested back into that project. And that is so important for us, Vice Mayor, that this project has to be amazing. It's not good, not okay. It has to be amazing. And so we will continue to invest. And we've done things organizationally to ensure that we have the revenue to make up that shortfall. So it's not going to be like, next year, you're wondering if the grocery's still open. It will be open. Or you'll have a different gentleman standing in front of you today.
Very much.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Powers? Yes.
Can you explain again, you made a comment about the people that use their EBT or SNAP card?
Yes.
Can you explain, so you get some kind of a residual back from is it the state? Is that funding you get back?
Yes. So it's called the Virginia Fresh Match Program. And what it does, it reimburses the grocer 50% of the cost when we sell produce to individuals who utilize their SNAP or WIC benefits. So let's say potatoes cost $5, they'll only pay $2.50.
Do most people know that? Because we help an individual that, we take him shopping, and he has the mindset that he can't use his SNAP card there, which I keep telling him I don't think that's true. So this is helpful information for me to know.
I made sure before I left, it's working today. I know that for sure.
Because it's very close to his house. It'd be great for him to go, but he for some reason, he's got this in his mind that he can't use his SNAP card there.
Okay. Well, and if there are any other issues, please reach out to me, and I'll make sure my staff
I'm going to drive him
alert on
there.
that.
I'm going to drive him there to prove it to him that he can go there, because it's a much shorter drive for him to go there.
And that program is amazing, because what it's doing is encouraging folks to eat healthy food. So, yeah, it may have been cheaper in the past to go buy the potato chips or something like that, but now it's cheaper for you to purchase produce and, again, have that access to fresh food. That's the entire point of that program, is to give folks access to fresh food.
We'll take care of that tomorrow.
Amen. Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Sanchez-Jones.
Hi, Mr. Vincent.
Hello.
I was at the plaza a couple of weeks back, and I noticed that a lot of the rooms were being used for meetings.
Yes.
Is there a charge for that meeting space?
Not for nonprofits or government.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
No. And Councilman, I'll tell you, that has been the biggest challenge we've had. So we figured out how to operate a grocery store. We figured out how to operate an adult high school. But man, it has been just brutal trying to figure out how do we get all these folks into these rooms, because it was more than we expected. We just built it and thought it would be okay, but there's so much demand for it, and we're just trying to figure out how we make sure this works. But yes, there's a lot of activity going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vincent, thank you so much for the update today.
And thank you all for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Now we're going to turn to reports of city officers and city manager. And Ms. Turner, I'll call on you to introduce our budget briefing on external agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. I'd like to bring up our grants manager, Helen Ferguson, who will go over the process that we went through for external agencies. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Ferguson.
Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, members of City Council, and Ms. Turner. Today, I'm going to report on the external agency process as part of the budget process. I will cover the history of the process, updates, applications, and funding recommendations. Historically, the city has opened this funding opportunity to a limited number of agencies in the community. The applications were submitted and aligned with the council's strategic initiatives, or were part of city ordinances, state codes, or formal agreements that the city had entered in. This year, the process was updated to include more community agencies with the goal of greater transparency. The process opened on November 17th of 2025. We held 2 training sessions to assist with the process. The first session was held on November 21st, and the second on December 5th. The applications submitted were, the application submission process closed on January 9th at 5 p.m. During the application submission process, staff returned over 30 emails and phone calls to individuals who needed help with the process to help with successful submissions. The application process was shared on social media, via email, via the city's website, and by word of mouth. The same requirements were used from previous years with a few additional requirements. We used the 2006 council requirements that added the proof of board participation, both in attendance and financial support, as well as an audit from the agencies that requested more than $25,000. We also did a risk score, and an organization's risk score evaluated experience with grants, financial audits, staff turnover or changes within the organization, previous monitoring results within the city, or previous monitoring results within the city or other organizations, and the ability to meet project or financial goals. Organizations were also assessed on the amount of funding they requested. Those requesting $100,000 or more were assessed a lower rating than those requesting less funding. The highest available possible score is a 10. The lowest or highest risk score is a 6 or below. So those who had a higher risk received a 6. We had 2 agencies that fell in that category. A low risk score is between 9 and 10. We had 26 agencies that received that rating. And a medium risk is a score between 7 and 8. We had 28 agencies fall in that category. An agency could have easily received a high-risk score by requesting over $100,000. A total of 56 applications were submitted. Of the submitted applications, only 64% were considered complete. The most common reason an application was considered incomplete was that the application lacked board giving information or board attendance information. It lacked demographic information, so information about who they supported, or it lacked an organizational plan or a strategic plan. Due to the large number of incomplete applications and many of the requested items being new, the decision was made to score all of the applications received. All agencies that are recommended for funding but submitted incomplete applications must submit the missing documentation in order to receive their funding. So we have 3 categories. Regional agreements. This category includes agencies that have a formal agreement with the city, a city ordinance or state code that supports the city, requires that the city supports the agency. An example of this would be the health department. So there is code that requires that we support the health department. There is institutional alignments. This category includes agencies that maintain operational stability or foundational public assets. Example agencies are Virginia Western Community College CCAP program or Downtown Roanoke, Inc. And then we also have what we consider our competitive external agency. And this category includes agencies that applied for funding to support their community work. So our regional agreements, the quick facts. The average score was a 65. The highest score was an 81. The lowest score was a 22. And the average risk score was an 8. And again, an example institution would be the health department. Institutional alignments. Average score was a 73. The highest score was a 93. The lowest score was a 62, and the average risk was an 8.4. An example is Virginia Western Community College's CCAP program. Our competitive external agencies. Just a quick note, on the application packet, it did say that scores had to receive a 70 to be considered for funding. Quick facts on this is the average score is an 81. The highest score was a 97. The lowest score was a 37. And the average risk was an 8.3. So the total recommended funding for all 3 categories is $12.8 million. The regional agreements, the request totaled $11.8 million, but the recommendation is for $11.9. And that change is because the health department received their updates from the state about what localities were responsible for, and so that accounts for the change there. Under institutional alignments, the request was $256,000. The recommendation is $249,000. Under competitive external agency, the request was $2 million. The recommendation is $652,000. And this fits within the budget of what we have available to fund our external agencies. I know this was pretty brief for what I usually do for you guys, but I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all the agencies that submitted the application, who attended the trainings, who asked the hard questions. And then I wanted to thank the review committee. They put a lot of time into reviewing the applications. There was a lot of information there for them to review. And then I wanted to give thanks to the Office of the City Manager and the budget team for the support during this process. And I'll take any questions.
Ms. Ferguson, thank you for your excellent work on this and everything you do. We really appreciate it in pulling this team together. Are there questions? Ms. Powers?
And this might have been in the update that you gave us a few weeks ago, but on the scoring card, I know in the past we've talked about what the return on our investment is. Was that part of the scoring for the amount of money that would be given to any of these agencies?
Yes, there was a question on the scoring card that it had asked the evaluator to evaluate how well they described their KPIs, their measurements, and if they thought they were attainable. And so that would help us evaluate the return on investment. And I will tell you that some of our agencies really struggled to tell us how they were going to measure the work that they were doing.
And I believe in the past, we talked about if they were continuing agencies that were, coming back year to year, we'd be able to see that information. Were we able to get that information from year to year?
Not this year because of the way the application was worded. That is one thing that we will be going forward, and we will be doing monitoring this year, which will be very new. And so by them giving us the exact things that they plan to measure, we will be able to collect that data year after year and truly measure it. In the past, they really just didn't say how they were going to measure what they were doing. And so there's not really a good way to hold them accountable for that. And so we will have that going forward.
I don't have a question more so than just to say that I like this new process. I know our written news is here, but our TV folks, I wish they were still here to cover that, we are aware, at least I'll speak for myself, of the public's comments and sentiments about how we've used money and how we manage where their tax dollars, outside of grant money and things of that nature, money from the state, how are their tax dollars used? And this is the way that we are putting forward an application process to know who's getting their money. We're putting forward a monitoring process to make sure that the people are accountable and doing exactly that they said they were going to do, and that we're measuring to make sure that, hey, we gave you X amount of dollars and you did something that made Roanoke better, or you did something that did return return an investment to us. If it's, for example, Downtown Inc., just for an example. So I really want to make sure that people know and are aware that we as a city are taking the steps to create transparency and accountability and fix a lot of the wrongs of the past going forward. And thank you for your work on this too.
Yeah.
You thanked a lot of people, but thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I want to, Ms. Ferguson, in addition to you, I want to thank our city manager, Ms. Turner. You've been here a little over a year, and I want to commend you and your team for working really hard to look at the overall health and well-being of our organization from every aspect, from how we care for our employees, how we look at our potential revenue growth, our expenditures, these new processes that we're putting in place. All of this is not just about transparency, it's about long-term financial health and well-being for our organization while sustaining our really positive credit rating. So I want to thank you and your team for the additional hours that you're putting in, not just during the budget, but year-round for this. I don't think the public has any clue how much time you're spending on helping us get on the right path. And so I just wanted to personally thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move into our items recommended for action. Item A is the acceptance of Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, DCR, Community Flood Preparedness Fund grant. This is watershed modeling for Peters Creek and Ore Branch watersheds. We have one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmembers Hagan and Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation funding from the Community Flood Preparedness Fund grant to the City of Roanoke, authorizing execution of any required documents on behalf of the city, appropriating funds detailed more fully infra, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you. This funding will allow the city to complete a comprehensive survey and inventory of streams and stormwater systems, which will be used to develop accurate watershed models. These models will inform future capital projects, evaluate impacts of new development, support emergency preparedness, and guide public outreach efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes, Ms.
Sorry,
Powers,
I have
that's
so many
fine.
questions.
Now's the time.
Team here.
Okay. I know in the past, we were still acquiring property in the Peters Creek Road area to mitigate the flooding. Have we completed all of those properties?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Ms. Powers, thank you for that question. Yes, so the question that you're asking about is over in the Peachtree area off of Northwoods. We have acquired those properties, and the second measure will be brought forward before you here will be to consider an application to FEMA to adjust the flood maps for those properties for a subsequent property or project. This particular grant funding is actually to do modeling for future projects, which may include property acquisition in order to improve the city's flood rating standards and to address any long-term flooding issues that we have in this area.
That update.
All right, thank you. Other questions? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call, oh, no, you read the title paragraph, right? Okay. I think we're ready for the roll call. Thank you.
Ms. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Hagan?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Vice Mayor McGuire?
Aye.
Mr. Nash?
Aye.
Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item B is the authorization to submit an application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, for the Peters Creek Flood Mitigation Project, a conditional letter of map revision. We have one measure, a resolution, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
I'll move the motion.
Powers and Sanchez Jones. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to execute and submit an application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, for the Peters Creek Flood Mitigation Project, conditional letter of map revision, and authorizing the city manager or designee to take such further actions and execute such further documents as may be necessary in connection with this application.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project proposes vegetated floodplain benches along the stream to absorb floodwaters, lowering flood depths during a 1% annual chance of the 100-year flood without increasing risk to existing structures. Because of the project's scale and floodplain impacts, approval from FEMA is required through a conditional letter of map revisions. Council action is requested to endorse the CLOMR, which is, again, the conditional letter of map revisions, and authorize the city manager to execute and submit the necessary documents to FEMA.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Mr. Nash?
When I was looking at the flooding documents, I couldn't tell where on Peters Creek exactly it was. Is this that area near like the Harley Davidson dealership, or where we had like that really bad flooding incident? Like where on Peters Creek are we talking about with this?
Thank you, Councilmember Nash. I've got here with me Ian Shaw, our Stormwater Utility Manager, and Dr. Marcus Aguilar, who has done the bulk of the work on the previous project I discussed and this CLOMAR application. So this particular area here is actually located near Northwood, so you may be familiar with the Audi and BMW dealership, and then further on south on Peters Creek, the muffler shop. And so this would be just off Peters Creek in that particular neighborhood between those two locations where the project area would be.
That's where that little bridge is when you're coming out of the neighborhood. You cross that bridge, and then it is across from that Harley Davidson dealership on top of the hill.
That is correct.
Okay, I thought so, because that's where we had that really significant flooding several months ago, and I was like, oh my gosh. So thank you. I just want a clarification on where it was.
Other questions? All right, Madam Clerk, if you will please call the roll.
Ms. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Hagan?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor McGuire?
Aye.
Mr. Nash?
Aye.
Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the resolution is adopted. Item C is the adoption of the redefined strategic goals, objectives, and priorities for the city of Roanoke. There's one measure, a resolution. I'll entertain a motion and second.
I move the motion.
Second.
Council members Powers and Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
Resolution adopting the City of Roanoke's strategic priorities. That's it.
Short and sweet. I like it. All right. Well, I want to thank our city manager and team for working with council to refine these priorities, to make them a little tighter. And this is a living document, so we will continue to review and engage this, and I encourage citizens to take a look at these adopted priorities and part of our vision for the city. Any discussion by members of council? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Hagan?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Vice Mayor McGuire? Mr. Nash?
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the resolution is adopted. Thank you. And now I'll call on our city manager, Ms. Turner, for her comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 comments for today. Number 1, Parks and Recreation will be piloting a noise reduction initiative at the Shrine Hill pickleball courts. Staff has installed librarian quiet pickleball receptacles. Why are you laughing? Receptacles filled with softer balls along with informational signage for players. This effort responds to neighborhood concerns regarding the noise associated with pickleball, specifically the sharp ping sound produced during play. The use of softer balls is intended to help mitigate that noise while allowing continued use of the courts. RVTV will be filming educational promotional segments for this initiative in the coming weeks to help the public and encourage participation in the pilot program.
Thank you very much. I feel like that's going to be a successful pilot.
We hope so.
We will find out,
We hope
right?
so, we hope so. Number 2, in recognition of International Women's Day, the International City County Management Association, or ICMA, hosted the 2026 She Leads Gov virtual forum on March 5th. This year's forum themed Innovate, Inspire, Impact brought together more than 1,200 participants who joined virtually throughout organized watch gatherings across the country. The She Gov forums connect professionals committed to supporting one another, encouraging meaningful community change, and advancing innovation in local government. The event included conversations, collaborative sessions, and keynote presentations that provided practical strategies in strengthening local organizations and communities, while also fostering a strong sense of connection among participants. Here in Roanoke, more than 100 women employed by the city gathered Thursday morning, March 5th, to participate in this program. And just a little fun fact about the city of Roanoke: women currently represent 38.5% of the city's municipal force. Now, this is actually lower than nationally, because nationally, women make up more than 50% of local government. And we have 23 women serving in senior leadership roles. Employees from multiple departments participated in the program to strengthen their leadership capacity and build professional connections across the organization. It was a huge success, and a special thanks to the mayor for coming out giving greetings. We appreciate that. And last but not least, winter storm firm brought a prolonged period of freezing temperatures that impacted roadway pavements across the city. Water enters small cracks, freezes, expands and widens them, and repeated freeze-thaw cycles cause the pavement surface to weaken under traffic. Heavy equipment used for snow and ice removal operations also placed additional stress on the pavement. Since the storm, the City of Roanoke crews have logged 128 pothole repair requests through proactive inspection and city reports, with 23 of those reported in the past week. This volume is roughly 2.5 times higher than the same period last year, reflecting the storm's impact on road conditions. Crews have already repaired nearly 90 of those potholes, improving safety and ride quality across the city. The storm also strained the Water Authority's infrastructure, resulting in 140 water main breaks. Some of these breaks can resemble potholes. While most breaks have been repaired, permanent roadway restoration takes additional time. City right-of-way staff continue to monitor these locations to ensure repairs meet established standards while restoration work progresses. And just a special note, to date, 20 locations have been fully restored, and the remaining sites have been temporarily patched to maintain safe travel. Mr. Mayor, those conclude my comments for today.
Thank you very much for that update. I know we've certainly all gotten calls and emails and social media posts on the glorious potholes in the city. I think that gives an important overview. I know that it also is related to certain temperature levels in order to do this kind of filling and repairing of potholes, and we're there. So I'm glad to hear that we've made this much progress. If citizens have potholes to report, what's the best way for them to do that?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for that question. There's two ways that they can report that. They can report those through the iRoanoke app, and that is the preferred method. However, if they prefer a phone call, that is going to be 540-853-2000, option number 3.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Would we be able to share that out as a post on our social media?
Yep, we'll get it out.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, next we have our public matters follow-up, and Ms. Hedrick, welcome. Every council member should have received a print copy of this, but we're glad to hear it directly from you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. A bit of a short report this week, but we have started individually reaching out personally to each member or each resident, that speaks before council. So while it doesn't look like much on your paper, each person that's spoken in the last 2 weeks has received communication from me regarding their concerns. So in terms of school funding, at the February 17th meeting, 17 residents, which included 6 students, spoke about the proposed changes to the school budget. And again, each speaker received an acknowledgement and a thanks for their time. We also had 5 residents that spoke at that same meeting on behalf of the Friends of Washington Park, specifically advocating for the restoration of the caretaker's cottage. There was one question about an insurance document submission that was referred to the, I almost called you the city manager, you got another promotion, was referred to the city attorney's office, And again, all residents were made aware that their comments were heard and have been passed along if necessary to the appropriate departments. Dr. Manns also has a concern about the potential health impacts from a neighbor's tree. She shared those during the February 17th meeting. I did reach out to the code compliance team who have investigated the property and said that there's nothing enforceable regarding the neighbor's tree. So I also shared that update with Dr. Manns and let her know everything was investigated properly at this point. There's nothing enforceable that code compliance can deal with on her property.
So it sounds like in regard to that last one, it's really got to be a communication with the neighbor who owns that property to remove that tree.
Yes,
Right,
and at this point, it's not city property, so it is difficult for us to intervene in that
Right.
situation because it's private property and
I
there's
have
no
some
actual.
update on this for you. I spoke to our city manager right before I came to the meeting today. I did have a call from Barbara Derrick. She's helping her. So apparently what they need is they need to get the person who lives next door. Part of the tree is owned both properties from what we've now determined. They do have a company that is supposed to be coming tomorrow to cut down the trees. However, they need Mr. Pentimony's address or phone number to get permission to get access to his property to fully get that tree down. Ms. Mans is also has gotten help from Blue Ridge Independent Living that is going to be helping her with some of her other issues, one being her driveway and inside her house, a ceiling. So I don't really know how we get that information to her. They're expecting me to call them back this afternoon or tonight to give them this information so that they can get that neighbor's permission for the tree company to take down the tree.
So I don't know if that information is available through GIS. Sometimes we don't have updated numbers, but I suppose we can just try and work with city staff to get the contact information for that property owner.
Yeah, and we're looking into that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the follow-up on that. Very helpful.
And that is all that I have today for your follow-up.
All right,
So,
thank you. Oh, yes.
Ms. Turner, when Ms. Hedrick calls whatever speaker comes up before us, does she also clarify some misinformation that they come before council with? Is that part of the engagement with that speaker?
And I'll let her speak.
Thank you so much for your question. There have been instances where there has been misinformation. These particular reports, I did not find that to be the case. But in the past, when something like that has happened, I very often communicate with multiple staff members. They are often also involved with the residents to say, we spoke to this person, this is the information that they provided us with. It's a bit of a delicate balance because we do want residents to know we hear you, we understand your concern, but we also want to make sure that the city is giving accurate and truthful information.
Right.
So when those things have happened in the past, I'm very careful to pull in any staff members that have been involved in the situation to make sure that we're saying what is true and we're being very clear about our communication.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question.
Thank you.
Then we will move on to reports of committees, and these are opportunities for council members who serve as liaisons for any authorities, boards, committees, or commissions to give report updates. Anybody? Well, I have one. We had our Greater Roanoke Transit Company Board meeting today. We voted to, and this will come to us as a resolution probably at our April meeting. But because we typically do fare-free days on transit for elections, we voted to do that for the 3 upcoming elections. So we will have a resolution come before us, first meeting in April, to confirm that. We are receiving applications for the Transit Passenger Advisory Council. We currently have 3 vacancies, and so we'll be working to fill those as a GRTC board. And then probably the most exciting news is the progress we are making related to a new bus shelter and stop at Walmart at Valley View. That is moving forward very quickly now that Walmart is excited about it. Some test runs have been done by Valley Metro because this will require going through the parking area in front of the store. It's a different location than we talked about previously. It's along the tree line on the far side of Walmart, not on the Valley View Boulevard side. So the bus would still come on that ring road, but then turn into the parking lot and come around to the shelter but I wanted to update you all on that. We don't yet have a clear timeline on when that will be installed and up and running, but we are making significant progress. Thank you. We don't have any vacancies to fill today, so this council meeting will stand in recess for our closed meetings, and we will reconvene this evening at 7:00 p.m.